Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Four Corners podcast. I'm Shad here with Matt and Brad. Guys, how are you?
Doing good, Shad.
Doing good because I'm not covered in black goop.
Oh, God.
You didn't emerge from a box-like structure.
No.
That was my favorite statement that Alvarez made in the post-show recap is Byron Saxton doesn't know what a box is. But, God.
I heard Brian talking a little bit about that on like the Observer podcast or radio show, and he was like, is that one of the words that Vince has like an affinity, like some sort of phobia about? Like he doesn't like the word box, so it has to be
box. But if that was the case, they're still saying box in the phrase box-like structures. Okay, you know what? I don't...
Meltzer seemed very just over it when they were talking about it. He just seems like, I just sat through 5 WWE shows in like a week and I'm done.
Yeah, the word is that on that particular match, Pritchard and Vince changed it on Friday, and everyone was confused. And it's like, no kidding, everyone is confused.
Well, Pritchard was probably like, this Fiend concept, I don't understand it. It wasn't here 10 years ago and I remember wrestling, so I'm going to put Randy Orton over because he was here 10 years ago.
He's a youngin'. He's only like 40.
Yes.
Once Bray Wyatt is a few years older.
Oh, yeah.
Got a little more seasoning, then you can get a push.
Yeah. Oh, maybe he could just get a win at WrestleMania. Just that part. But anyway, enough headache-inducing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode. We are going to get our shout-outs taken care of. The first one is going to go to Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand, collarandelbowbrand.com. Use the promo code 4Corners Podcast. That is the number 4, capital C in Corners, capital P in Podcast. Save 10% off your order. Our other shout-out goes to Matt.
That would be to Orlando Colon. I don't know if Orlando Colon was on a pirate ship in Tampa, but he's in Puerto Rico, I guess. Still, that's kind of close to Tampa.
Yeah, not really.
Really?
No, I think it's I've been to Puerto Rico. I think it's about the same distance that like California would be from the East Coast. No, maybe not that much. It's still like 1,000 miles.
That's
I think.
No way.
I mean, it took a couple hours to fly from.
You know
Miami
what the biggest a couple hours, not that much. I mean, it takes a couple hours to fly from like Dallas to San Antonio.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
it's further out than you'd think, though.
The biggest mind screw for me was because my wife and I at one point were looking into maybe going to like Hawaii as on a vacation, and her sister lives in LA, so it's like we could have flown, seen her sister in LA, then flown from LA to Hawaii, and it was going to be like a 4 or 5 hour flight, and it's like 4 or 5 hours. Like I can literally get on a plane and fly from like Washington D.C. to LA in 5 to 6 hours. It's like, how far away is Hawaii? It's a lot. It's really far. It's
like right in the middle of the Pacific.
Sometimes too, though, with those flights, like depending on like how the Gulf Stream works, it could be not as far as you think, but the plane can't go as fast too.
Apparently, the big thing, the one that's way out in the Atlantic that we're thinking of is Bermuda. That's way the heck out there. But Puerto Rico, you go down to Cuba, follow Cuba over to Haiti, follow the Haiti, Dominican Republic, and then Puerto Rico's near the Dominican Republic. Okay. Also, we have a YouTube channel. It is 4 Corners Podcast. That's the number 4. No space between the 4 and the capital C in Corners. So you can find us that way. Brad, what are we going to have on there in the near future?
This episode will go up on Thursday. Tuesday, we put up an oldie, which is the Harley Race vs. Ric Flair Starrcade 83 match. And I'm queuing up probably Stan Hansen and Andre, Mike Quackenbush versus Eddie Kingston, and I believe Low-Key versus Samoa Joe are in the pipeline.
Cool. All right. So that's not what we're covering tonight, though. In honor of it being WrestleMania season, Brad, what are we doing?
So we're going to take a look at the first 17 WrestleMania main events, and we're essentially just going to rank what we liked from best to worst, but we're going to go chronologically. I think the problem is this year, Mania didn't really interest any of us, so I thought it'd be more fun to talk about Manias we do like.
Sure. Well, and ones we don't. We get a wider cross-section that way.
I mean, like, I'm looking. I don't like 2, 4, 9, and 12 are ones I don't like out of the first 17. Oh, and 16 and 15 suck. 15's really bad.
Well,
15 is low-key one of the worst ones ever. Like, probably a bottom 3.
It absolutely is. Outside of the main event, it's just like garbage.
Well, and what pisses me off about that, though, is if Russo just had not screwed with it and, like, left the matches as is, it would have been an okay Mania.
Yeah.
But he did that stupid thing where, like, Road Dogg won the IC title and Billy Gunn won the Hardcore title because that's interesting. It's like, no, I kind of did want to, at the time, I kind of did want to see Billy Gunn maybe win the IC title, but, you know, whatever.
Just flipping the expectations for the sake of doing it. It's like, no, you don't do that.
No. Oh, and that Man
that sucks.
Taker Hell in a Cell
the cell.
Terrible.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, well, I guess that starts us at number 1 then, doesn't it, Brad?
Yeah, so this is Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Rowdy Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff with the ace Bob Orton like in Piper's corner, and then Muhammad Ali is like in an enforcer role. And I think Liberace was the timekeeper.
Yeah. Boy, he had a huge grin on his face, didn't he?
Well, I mean, a bunch of sweaty men rolling around in their underwear.
This is a really weird segue, but have either of you ever seen the movie they did a few years back with?
No, because it sounded horribly depressing. Like he sounded like he was just a mess of a person.
It was Michael Douglas and God, what's his face? Not Ben Affleck, it's the other one.
Matt Damon?
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon, yeah.
Matt Damon, and there's even like some cameos by Rob Lowe, who has the most ridiculous makeup, practical effect makeup on as a guy who has like a plastic surgeon who has clearly had too much plastic surgery himself. Okay. It's called Behind the Candelabra or something like that. It's unintentionally a hilarious film, mostly because Michael Douglas is just, it's like everyone's so over the top.
Okay.
They really ruined those movies because the what was the Queen one that really like whitewashed a lot of shit that was just
oh,
is that Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody. That's the one with Rami Malek, right? He won the Oscar for it.
Yeah, that one. Really...
I like Rami Malek. Mr. Robot, for those who have not seen that show, fantastic show. I loved Mr. Robot. I like Rami Malek. I'm a fan, but he should not have won an Oscar for that. That just wasn't a good movie.
But like, there's this thing with the Academy where they really love blowing smoke up of like mediocre biopics asses.
It was mediocre. And I hate to say that because, again, I like Rami, but it was so mediocre.
Well, I like Queen, but then, like, people were telling me, like, it left all this stuff out, and I'm like, then why do I want to see it?
Oh, I'm sure it did. I mean, the focus was Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
That was the focus of the film. And you get it because he was obviously, like, the biggest star of Queen. He was the front man. And he had, a really compelling story, but it's a weird film. It's a weird film for those who haven't seen it, because I'll spoil it. Like essentially the crux of the film is if I was a member of the LGBTQ community, I would almost be offended by this film, because the premise of it is kind of like Freddie Mercury was in love with this straight woman, and just he's gay, so he couldn't actually make that happen, but he basically like wished he could, because he was absolutely in love with her, and they're like, it's almost like a love story between the two of them.
Isn't that like doesn't that like harken back to like the ye olden like 80s and 90s where people thought they could fix gay people by just being attractive enough? That's kind of like what that movie is subconsciously saying, it feels like.
I mean the real it has some historical basis in fact. Like when he passed away, he did leave like a portion of his estate to her, because
but I mean, this is a problem.
He actually was in love with her, and at one point before he actually like came out, he did date her, and they appeared to have like an actual relationship. It's just that he was a homosexual man, so he just couldn't sustain that. But it's weird. It's a weird film.
Isn't that more of a product of the times though, where like it was just, it wasn't as accepted, so like you kind of faked it for a while, and like you could love someone, but it wasn't really like who you were, like stuff like that. But I was gonna say, there's a bigger trend in Hollywood though that I find really repulsive, and they do it to both genders though. But this, like how no one in movies or people like can't see it anymore, like how platonic friendship just doesn't exist anymore. Like if you do like a movie about like two women that are really close, like they eventually have to be lesbians, like they just can't be friends, or or you have people wanting to ship like Cap and Bucky as like a gay couple, and it's like, no, they fought a war together, they're just like super close. Like please, like stop trivializing like same-sex friendship because you need to like insert sex into every fucking thing in the world.
They try to make it, they try to make more of it, and I just feel like it must be like the people who are doing that just, and I hate to stereotype or cast aspersions against people, but it's like, have you guys never had like normal positive same-sex relationships? Because I mean, I joke, I bring him up every like episode. I joke about like friend of the show Christy Petrillo, but he and I are good friends. Like we literally have known each other like almost like 20 years. He was in my wedding. Like we're close. Like I call him like my brother because he's basically like my brother. Like I'm very close to him. I talk to him like almost every day. So it's like you can those relationships exist.
Yeah,
and only in Hollywood do they think like, oh, there must be something more. It's like, no.
Yeah, but I mean, I have like my best friend I've known since the first grade, and I'm a 40-year-old man. Like, yeah, that's a lot. That's almost my entire life. I've known this person.
Yeah.
And you're just friends. Is that so hard to go with?
I don't know. I think the problem too is like Hollywood is a really like warped place too. So I think the problem is, and I think Joe Rogan kind of has intimated this before about like actors aren't fun to talk to, because I think in Hollywood the problem is like that ideal gets a little lost because everyone there doesn't have like altruistic meanings. Everyone's like just using you for one purpose or another, trying to buddy up to you to sell something. So maybe that's why things get lost. But anyway, so this is the first WrestleMania main event. We talked about this on Tim's show, actually. WrestleMania 1 is really just a glorified MSG show. Look at any MSG show in the era, and this is maybe just a little beefed up version of that. So this is kind of like your standard issue, I would say, main event tag. It's not bad. I would never claim this is bad, but it's nothing special, and it's honestly kind of a forgettable match, as is like WrestleMania 1 in general.
Yeah.
I'm going to be real honest. This annoyed me. Because, okay, yeah, you're having a big spectacle event. I get that. That's great. But for crying out loud, do some. We got 9 minutes into the match before the match really starts. We have 9 minutes of a 13.5 minute match before things actually get going. So much of it's just gaga beforehand. I'm like, oh.
So you're saying Thunderlip's match with Rocky was a better special attraction?
Yeah, for me, definitely. But I was just I was so frustrated with this because also I didn't realize that Mr. T was a cruiserweight, and that kind of threw me. But
this doesn't dispute Brad's point that it's basically just a MSG show, because that was so all those like 1970s, 1980s WWF
Just killing time.
Shows. Yeah, you would get like a 20-minute match between like Salvatore Belomo and Moondog Spot.
The only thing that separates this from like an MSG show from the 70s is this would have gone on at 9 or at like 9:30, because then it would have all been, this would have been the main, but then it would have all been like jobber stuff for curfew, which was 11, I think.
So it kind of makes me think of Jerry Lawler matches I've seen when he didn't feel like doing anything. So you have this match where he spends most of his time standing around acting like he's got something in his hand or in his tights and telling people to be quiet about it. And so you don't actually have anything going on for most of the runtime.
Or the hide the chain matches.
Yeah, but the most egregious thing I ever saw was, oddly enough, off of a Coliseum home video. Someone gave me an Undertaker video package, and that was very kind of them to do, because they didn't know what else to do, and I think it was my birthday or something like that. So that's great, but that if the whole match was 10 minutes, he spent 8 of it acting like he had something in his hand, which he didn't, and then telling people to be quiet, which they weren't. And it's just like, well, I mean, that's the point, right? Like, you can get them all fired up and upset without actually having to do anything. It's like, okay, that's nice, but this is boring the crap out of me.
The thing is, though, when Lawler or like Larry Zbyszko would go into stall mode, though, they would do it in such a way usually that it was inciting the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like that can be hard to watch on home video, but like it is effective.
Yeah, but I'm not.
So I put this. This was 17th on my list out of 17. It is the bottom one.
Wow.
I don't actually think it's bad, but it's just kind of a nothing, and it's not something I would ever personally care to revisit. It's probably technically better than a couple of these, but like I just have no fondness for it.
On mine it is in slot number 14, and I don't. I'm like, fine, I guess, because like I said, they don't do anything for so much of it. And I don't know. I was not terrifically engaged. I know everything's got to start somewhere, but I don't know. This seems like if you want to hook people into being excited about your event, then this is not what I would have done.
I have it on as number 15 on mine, so I do have it low. It's not. I don't think it was bad. It's just kind of there.
It's a relic of a different era that doesn't fit even with like a 90s idea of what a pay-per-view main event should be. So let's move on to WrestleMania 2. This is Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a cage. What's weird is I don't like this match, and I've seen Hogan and Bundy have matches I like before. on like their Saturday night's main event match was actually pretty good, better than this.
The selling. Go ahead, man.
No, you can.
No. Well, the selling was, at least to me, it just seemed so wildly inconsistent because you would have all this stuff going on. Hogan's doing stuff to Bundy, and then Bundy comes back and he's getting over on Hogan, and he's going at Hogan and going after the taped ribs and stuff. And Hogan's selling, he's like, oh, and then Hogan, he doesn't even hulk up. He just pops up and goes at Bundy. And he hulks up later in the match, but I'm like, what, and this kept happening. Also, you know what? I don't have bad things to say about Elvira. She's had a great career doing stuff she enjoys, but she was not good on commentary here. It's like she wasn't paying attention.
Would she even know anything about wrestling? That's what I don't.
Probably not.
Like Bundy's pulling the rib tape off of Hogan, and she goes, "He's taking his pants off," and I'm like, what are you watching?
I mean, and that might have been wishful
Hulk
thinking
Hogan's
on
not
her
wearing
part.
pants, but but no, I didn't. You know what? Of everything, this wasn't great in my estimation, but yeah, it wasn't as awful as some other stuff that's on the list. So yeah, I don't care for it, but I don't hate on it too hard, I guess.
I don't think we ever got her show in Columbus. I don't have any recollection of it until I saw some of it on streaming services.
Matt, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I actually was just going to agree with Brad. I actually recall their Saturday night's main event match, and I do think that was better. I think this was also kind of fine for me. I thought it was okay. It was just kind of there too.
I need to watch just this match at some point because WrestleMania 2 is just a terrible WrestleMania, and it's really disjointed and exhausting with the 3-venue idea. And there's a reason they never repeated that.
It's a terrible idea because at best you have, even if everybody is, you remember whenever they did whatever that Raw anniversary show, and half of it was at the Barclays Center and the other half is wherever they used to,
the Manhattan
they did Raw
Center
back at the beginning. Yeah. The crowd was not happy about that because they paid tickets to go to the Manhattan Center to watch a big screen. And so you got that in the way where they're like, hey, if we paid for these, I could have just stayed home and watched it. So they're mad. Even taking that out of the equation, you have to rebuild your heat in every location because the crowd is not hot. So you're having to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again just to get, just to get the crowd fired up. And they were not happy about it. And I can't really say as I blame them, but it's what's a terrible idea. Keep everything in one place, and that way everything builds, unless you just kill the card dead right in the middle or something.
2 does have one of my favorites, though, which is the NFL versus WWE Battle Royal with the fridge.
Yeah, that's oddly very fun. There was someone in that, maybe it was Bill Fralick. Someone was in that where I was like, wow, this guy actually had some talent.
Yeah, I always mean to look up the list because I looked it up once and I was kind of surprised at some of the people in there.
I feel like it was Bill Fralick, but let me actually see. Bill Fralick was in that.
Okay.
Then the fridge is in it. Who else was in that?
Let me pull it up.
It's not the last time the NFL shows up at Mania.
Jimbo Covert, Harvey Martin, Ernie Holmes, Bill Fralick, as I mentioned, Russ Francis, and of course the fridge. It had to have been Bill Fralick.
Yeah, and we We should have forgot. Bill, that drunken degenerate Billy Martin was involved in the main event at WrestleMania 1.
You take such great pleasure in mentioning it. What a
just because everything
degenerate he was.
Anything like outside of like an actual game with him is either involves fighting or drinking, and he was instrumental in that riot in Cleveland in like the late '60s during like the 10-cent beer night or something.
Gee, I wonder how a riot could have broken out on a 10-cent beer night.
And because there's this journalist, it's a fairly famous journalist, I think. They quoted him on that night because he was there, and he's like, I went with $2 in my pocket. You do the math.
Ooh, that's a lot of beer.
Yeah. This
Hold on,
is the
I'm looking
'60s,
it
though.
up.
I think you weren't getting like that watered down like stuff you get now at stadiums.
Okay.
I'm looking this up. Bill Fralick was in that. He apparently did wrestling like in college. No, not college. In high school.
Okay.
Oh my God! Like he had a 98-7 overall record. And I'm looking at him. Did he do something? He did like an angle or something with Big John Studd, or was it just like the promo for the actual match?
I don't know. I haven't seen the TV to lead up to 2 before.
Oh, Jim Valley. I'm seeing an old tweet by Jim Valley saying I always thought Bill Fralick would work in the WWE again. He showed by far the most aptitude of all the football players in WrestleMania 2. Great charisma and talking. Yeah, like I remember watching that because I watched it a few years back. I watched it like many years ago, but I watched it for some reason. I was like watching the WrestleManias again, and I saw that, and I was like, who the hell is this Bill Fralick guy? I mean, I know he's an old football player, but I was like, wow, he had like, he seemed like he had some talent and charisma. I guess if this was like the modern day era, like Vince McMahon would probably be like, look, I got a boatload of cash, just like. If your career's done, whenever your career's done, like come on over. I feel like he could have been something in wrestling. Could have been like an Ernie Ladd.
So Matt, where would you place this on your list?
I would put it slightly higher than the Mania 1 event. I'd put this at number 14. I have it pretty low.
Where do you have it, Shad? I think Shad might have died.
Shad.
Sorry. Accidentally clicked the mute button. I have it at 13, but I think that's because I have a match in what's basically a spoiler position that's gonna probably cause some friction, but we'll get there.
I have it at 16. So we're gonna move on to WrestleMania 3, which is I think the first time they actually kind of figured out what WrestleMania should be, which this is the first one that feels like a pay-per-view. They did like an appropriately big match, even though Hogan and Andre was a rerun from the earlier 80s, but we won't bring that up. So this is a match that Andre is like really in bad shape for, but it really does a lot with very little, if you ask me. I really like this one as an adult. Like there's a good narrative pretty much of Andre like taking it to Hogan, but once like things once he hits like any adversity, he kind of just crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like the early pin that could have been a little more controversial, and then the big body slam. Yeah.
Well, it was. There's so many pieces that go into this that make this such an epic sight to behold. Like there is a lot of, because the build, Hogan and Andre had been friends before, and Andre was this big likable, people love Andre the Giant and that sort of stuff. But then you have Andre turn on him, and you've got all this going, and then in the course of the match, the big spots that Brad mentioned turns it into this like epic storytelling kind of thing where it's I mean, you know, if you look at even looking at the two of them with what we see today, they still look epic and big and larger than life and that sort of stuff, which is good. I mean, they should, but the mystique like continues. Not even just this like, oh, you know, Hogan and Andre, you know, the big thing in at WrestleMania 3. It's like you watch it, it's like the mystique is still there. It's still alive, and it's it's engaging, and that's where like I've got this ranked pretty high because of all of those pieces in it.
I think too, if you haven't seen this, WrestleMania 3 is worth it for Steamboat and Savage, but you also need to look up the Piper's Pit segments that set this match up because they're absolutely like brilliant over the course of like a month of these.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're really good.
We've talked about this on the podcast before. They're very good, and I mentioned this before, but there's one part of those Piper's Pits that I thought Piper did a really understated but like surprisingly effective thing. It's remember when Andre like ripped Hogan's chain off, and he accidentally must have scratched him like with his fingernail or with the cross, the chain, something, and there's like just a little bit of like a little trickle of blood like going down Hogan's chest.
Yeah.
From wherever he got scratched. And Hogan's like, you know, he's cutting his promo. He's exaggerating stuff as he always does. But
yeah,
like Piper just goes, you're bleeding, man. And it's like, it's this really like subtle thing, but he says it with such gravity that when you're actually watching it, it's like, whoa, this is actually like really serious. Like his best friend just called him out and challenged him, like basically betrayed him. And it actually makes it way more dramatic.
And Piper being understated makes it so intense because Piper's not Looney Tunes bouncing off the walls. You know, he's like real focused in and like soft spoken about it. It changes the whole feel.
So Shad,
I'm trying to agree with you.
You said you went high on this one, so where did you place it?
Because of the spectacle of it, I actually have it at number 4 on my list.
Wow, that's high. I went lower. Some people might think this is high, but I put this at 11 on mine.
In the bottom half.
Bottom half, but it's like it's in the field of what I would call like entertaining and okay matches, not bad matches.
I'm more in line with Shad. I put it very high. It's not in my top 5, but it's just under it. I have it as number 6 because I feel like the match is such a spectacle, and it's both not a good match and an amazing match. Like because of all the spectacle, because of everything. I still feel it's arguably, even now, like we're like what 37 Manias in, I still feel it's arguably the most recognizable match.
It's got a lot of subtlety to it though, because it's a match that you can watch multiple times, and you can like the 5th time you watch it, you can still pick out little things they did, like little bits and chunks of narrative they like threw in there. Especially if you see like the build up, like they even do things to like pay off things they said in promos and stuff. Like so, it's a very, very well worked, despite like Andre's limitations.
I know Andre had his limitations in this, but there's just like this is if you say WrestleMania main event to people, this is one of the first things that pops to mind.
Oh,
like this is
what
this is defining.
If you talk to like normies that were pop culturally aware in the 80s and ask them about wrestling, this is the first thing they would probably say.
Yeah.
So on to WrestleMania 4, which is one of the worst WrestleManias. This is the final of the WWF tournament. I think we actually reviewed this when we did the Mega Powers Explode.
I think we did.
Maybe I'll pull that and put that up on YouTube for next week.
Okay.
You know what? I think I'll do that.
Our Mega Power shows?
Do the Savage DiBiase thing to kind of keep with the theme. or maybe I'll do Hogan and Savage because we did that one too. But so this is okay. Obviously they both wrestled a couple times, so they're a little tired. I would say it's a technically competent match.
I really liked this one. Yeah, it had been a while since I'd watched it, and I go back and watch it now. Like, this match is only 10 minutes long, but like you said, it's the capper on a tournament, and
A really
there's
bad
lots
tournament.
of stuff. Well, there's lots of stuff that's done right in this. So you have like Andre's at ringside just doing little interference stuff, but he's doing it really well because it's just, Andre knows how to work. He knows what he's doing. He picks his times. He picks his spots to interfere just perfect.
Well, and he's like an impending sense of doom if Savage gets too close to that side.
Yeah. And then one thing that I love in this is that Savage and Elizabeth as the faces look smart because they get to a certain point in the match and Savage tells her, he's like, go. And he has her go get Hogan to back him up. And it makes the faces not look stupid. Like, it's like, no, this is, he's got Andre out here. This is going to kill my chances. Let's do something smart. I love that.
It's also the other time they did that where he was getting beat up by the Hart Foundation and Honky Tonk Man, and she's like trying to drag Hogan out there, and he's like, why are you bothering me? And he sees like what's going on in the ring, and then it's just like on, and he just like marches in and starts beating everyone up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was after this, wasn't it?
No, that was before.
It was before. Okay.
That would have been that would have been a Saturday Night's Main Event probably in like the fall of '87, I think.
Okay. So they knew the score. They knew they could count on each other. And so it was just a smart move by the faces. Thank God, sometimes the faces actually do something smart. And it drives me nuts because so many times the faces are just, they don't do something smart. They do dumb stuff. And it's like, look, there are some people that complain about like AEW they're like, oh, all these factions. It's like, yeah, they got friends and there are other factions running around. So they're going to hang with their friends and watch each other's backs because they behave in a way like they're competing and trying to work up the rankings. Like, no, this makes sense to me. I like it. It's good stuff. I'm sorry, that's a lot of talk,
Matt.
I thought this was a good match, but I technically have it only at the midway point, and that's not because it's a bad match, but it's at this point it just was kind of getting into like personal preferences. There are other matches that I just like more. So I had this at number 9, but that's, again, it's not because it's a bad match.
That's
and I actually like
where I have it too.
Mm-hmm.
I have it in 9
I actually
as
like
well.
I like Savage and DiBiase a lot, but I have it as number 9 just because there's some matches that are like objectively just great, and that's my top 5. But then between like 6 and 9, it's matches that are actually pretty good, but I have them ranked kind of like personal preference. Like, again, I have Hogan Andre as number 6, just outside of the top 5 because I just like that match a lot and such a spectacle. But this comes in as number 9 because there's a few other matches I just appreciate more, or just personal preference, really. But
sense.
this match is good. I mean, I agree that WrestleMania 4 is overall not that good of a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I have this one sitting for me at number 6. I like the storytelling. I like how the pieces come together. I like, Savage and Liz being smart. I like all that. I like Andre's role out there. I just really like this.
So we're going to move on to WrestleMania 5. We've also done this one on the podcast because I just watched this one for that. So this is Hogan and Savage at WrestleMania 5. Now, the one thing that annoys me about this match is Jesse Ventura really kind of ruins it by just being obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's really obnoxious in this match.
Yeah. He never takes his foot off the gas.
No, and this is like good Hogan showing up. Like he breaks out like the drop toe hold. He brings out some stuff you don't see Hogan do unless he's in like a bigger match, like stuff you'd see him do against Muta a couple years later and stuff. Like that's what you get from Hogan in this match.
In watching this, or in us going over this before, there's just the build. The build is so good. The jealous eyes, yeah. It's the build on it is so good, and Savage playing the just paranoid off his rocker role. It's just all these pieces work so well for me. I've got this one ranked pretty high.
Savage did have a PowerPoint presentation before this.
But I like this one a lot. It hits on all kinds of pressure points for me.
Where do you have it?
I have Hogan Savage at number 3.
We are also on the same wavelength. I don't have it as number 3. I actually have it even higher. I have it as number 2.
Ooh, number 2.
Because maybe this is because once when we were doing our Mega Powers episodes, I really got into like watching through this period, and just that Hogan Savage storyline, I still feel it's arguably the best storyline they did. If you actually look at the whole thing, like we did, it's arguably the best storyline that they did in the 80s. It was so good.
Yeah.
And I just really probably because I do have that appreciation for everything they did. I just love this match. So I think it's a good match. I think it deserves to be in the top 5, or at least like ranked high up there.
Yeah.
I think my personal preferences might cause me to rank it, number 2. But it's just I really enjoy this match.
Well,
what about you, Brad?
I also had it at number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty consensus. It's one of the best.
Yeah. If you go and listen to us talk about this on the episode we had devoted to it, we're pretty glowing about it because it's good stuff.
So then up next is what I would call a miracle performance, and Hogan deserves a lot of credit for it. But this is WrestleMania 6, IC title versus World title, Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, Hulkamaniacs versus the Little Warriors.
It's hard for me to, what am I looking for here? This is one of those where, like, if you get into all of the trappings that go around this story, you can get bogged down pretty quick. With, was it the right time? Was Warrior, they had built Warrior up to be the guy, but should they have, all of that stuff and all the baggage around Warrior and that sort of thing. But on the other and the fact that they apparently practiced this match for weeks.
Well, it shows when you have a plan and when you competently book from week to week. So how this all started is they teased this in the Royal Rumble in '90, where they eliminated everyone, and it was Hogan and Warrior, and they ran the ropes and then clotheslined each other down, like after like a face-off. And they gave people that little nugget of them versus each other, and then it grew out from there.
Okay. For me, though, this is another historic thing that kind of falls into the big spectacle category. Like, just the amount of what goes into this that brings it up, because I'm mixing. Because they practiced it a lot, but they did a good job with it. Like, I can't take that away. I was always a call it in the ring guy, so I never did like calling everything beforehand. But on the other side of it, that's where Warrior thrived, and so you have you have him kind of in his wheelhouse here to succeed, and I've got this not super high but decently high on my list.
I've actually got this quite high on my list.
Same.
I was not overall a Warrior fan, and it's weird because like I almost feel like I watched this stuff when it was happening, but I didn't, because I became a fan in the early '90s. So by the time I actually watched this had already occurred like years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to watch like the WrestleManias like as much as possible in sequential order,
Mm-hmm.
just renting stuff from like the video store. But I just wasn't. I was more like a Hulk guy. I just was not into Warrior. But I've seen Warrior have good matches with, I would say, 3 people in the WWE. Well, maybe really in his entire career, but definitely in the old school.
I'd say
the old school
4.
WWF.
His match with Slaughter at the Royal Rumble in '91 is not bad.
Oh, I'd have to watch that again to see.
It's not like amazing, but it's not bad.
I would say I'd have to watch that, so I can't speak to that. But Rude, and we actually talked about that one match. I think it was the SummerSlam when we reviewed like that match is like Rude got some stuff out of him. Obviously WrestleMania 7, the match was Savage is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then SummerSlam 90 with the Rude match in the cage.
Yeah. And then the other one is Hogan. Like Hogan, this match, I feel like when I watched it as a kid, all I really took away was Warrior 1, and I didn't like that because I didn't want him to win. I wanted Hogan to be the guy still.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back at it as like an adult fan, it's a really, really good match. And they tried to make a new star. I mean, we can kind of debate like, was that the right idea? I think
the fact that they didn't have challengers and they immediately reran Rude, like really, it's hard to tell because that really kneecapped him, because they literally reran a program from the year before. So that really set him up for failure.
It did. And I mean, he wasn't the best worker, so he needed I would almost say like he needed a particular type of opponent.
Yeah.
But they tried to make it work, so I don't begrudge them trying to put him over. I had this one ranked really high. This is actually number 4 on my list because I really just adore this match. I think it's like a really fun, really impressive match if you actually look at the mechanics of it and the emotion what they're trying to do.
It's number 5 for me. Same reason as you.
It is number 7 on mine, so I'm not too far off from Brad, but there's some stuff that I honestly think is just as big and historical as this is. I think there's some other stuff that I just think is better. So
that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's fair. So we're gonna head to WrestleMania 7 next. This is Hulk Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter for the WWF title. This is in the middle of probably one of the more tasteless angles WWE has done.
That is exactly what I had in my notes. Is seriously, distasteful angle.
Yeah, I think this, for considering Slaughter's age, I think this is actually a pretty solid match. It's not as good as the Desert Storm match, which comes a couple months later. That's the one. The Desert Storm match is pretty much where Hogan like cheats and like throws fireballs at Slaughter and pretty much like does a receipt for everything like Slaughter's done during his heel run.
Okay. This one is not. This one actually, for me, dips into the I could do without seeing this again territory. Because I don't know. Let me look at my notes real quick. It's got a frustratingly slow start. It feels, at least for me, this. I look at that and I'm like, this just seems unremarkable. This is your Mania main event. And they start with like working 3 minutes on a collar and elbow tie up, with the build that goes with it, and it's supposed to be like Hogan's the stand-in for everybody defending the country's honor against the sympathizer and Slaughter, but it's like, oh no, we're gonna hook that collar and elbow for a good 3 minutes. It's like, come on, like that it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
It's an awful angle, but I agree with Brad that the match is not as bad as you would think it is. And I have a soft spot for Slaughter. I feel like we through this podcast have actually seen probably more Slaughter matches than I had thought, but we've covered a few. And I actually really appreciate him as a worker. I actually think he doesn't get as much credit.
People saw him when he was older and didn't care, and he had that G.I. Joe money.
Yeah, but Slaughter was actually a really good worker.
Yeah.
I mean, we've mentioned before in the podcast that there was a period in the 80s, the early 80s, right before Hulkamania got really big, where Slaughter was the number 2, number 3 babyface in the promotion, and was over and drawing money. They could, I mean, if wrestling would not have been as big as it got, but if in a different world Hogan had just not been a thing, they could have actually pushed Slaughter as a main guy, and they would have drawn some money at least.
Sarge has, I think, one of the best ring names. Because just his gimmick name, Sergeant Slaughter, it tells you everything about him in one. The sergeant is okay, military gimmick, and then Slaughter, he's a blood and guts, take no prisoner kind of guy. And I know that we hit on it a few times, but I'll reiterate, my favorite thing about Slaughter is he walks the line between being, he can both be a nasty bully heel, but then pinball bump for the faces when they come up, and that's hard to do, and he does such a good job with it. And as he got older, he couldn't keep doing it.
And I think he doesn't really get enough credit for some of the things that he did in the 80s that people just don't remember, how when we had to defeat Globulus and he took out the Nemesis Enforcer for everyone.
Yes. That's
another great name.
That's a badass scene from that.
The Nemesis Enforcer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
No, it's all good. But yeah, this match just doesn't do it for me.
I ranked this 6th because.
Really?
Because I enjoyed a lot. But it's kind of where 6 to 10 is kind of very minute differences, and it turns into preference.
Yeah, I can follow you on that.
And it doesn't have it's a couple Manias ahead, but I kind of like Hart and Yokozuna 2 from Mania 10, but I really fucking hate the Yokozuna banana peel ending.
Yeah, I have that in my notes. That
it really destroys that match for me, and which is otherwise I think that one's actually a decently good match.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And we'll get to that because we can talk about those two in tandem because it's 9 and 10. But
yeah, for me.
Okay.
Go ahead, Matt. Go. No,
I
you
was
go.
just gonna say, like, I have this ranked as number 10.
Okay. I have it on number 11.
Mm.
So it's dropping into that category where I'm like, nah, I'm. It's like, hey, we're gonna watch this. No, I'm good.
So it's a middle third match for all three of us, essentially.
Yeah.
Just it's higher for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. So let's go to 8. Now 8 was a tough call. 9 was also a tough call because I kind of wanted to put both on here, and I kind of think Savage and Flair should have mained, but we got Hogan and Sid instead, which this is not a very good match. I actually like the angle at the end, though, with the Warrior coming back. I thought that was really cool, but this match is kind of eh.
The angle is cool, but I really hate this match.
Oh, I hate it. It's actually both Sid matches are so low.
Well, and I have problems with this match from a booking perspective. I tend to agree with people that Sid should have been the face after the Royal Rumble, and I kind of think Sid should have gone over here regardless of if he was a face or a heel, because even here, like, the match is bad, but like Hogan really just feels kind of tired, and like Sid really just has like a certain like juice to him here that they were really squandering.
Sid, okay, up to this point, we've been looking at, people Hogan has been involved with, because Hogan has been in, let me see, what are we on? We're on 8. He's been in the main event for 7 out of 8 Manias. Sid is the first guy since Andre, so that's, like 5 years or so, that looks like a scary, is gonna hurt Hogan threat. Which, okay, cool, but they don't do much with it.
I did like, there's one thing I really like in this match, and it's one thing that's always stuck with me, and I'm going to give Sid some credit, but when Sid did like the last rites on Hogan, I thought that was great.
Oh, he did do that.
Because he did the last rites right before the powerbomb. I thought that was like a really dick move, but I thought that was really like good.
Well, in setting a pattern for the future, Sid powerbombs Hogan, and Hogan just gets up.
Now, in fairness, there were some botched things in here, weren't there?
Yeah. Like, Shango was supposed to show up. The story that I understand is Shango was supposed to show up and break up the pin after Hogan's leg drop. And he's standing there at gorilla position waiting to go, and nobody cued him. So, he shows up way late. Like, match is over late.
And it's a long walkway, too, so, like, even if he would have gone on his own, he still would have been way late. Because it was it was almost like a football field walk, wasn't it?
It was a long walkway, and I think it was one of those where it wasn't a straight line.
Yeah, because
it had dogleg in it.
Yeah, because it felt like Warrior was running forever.
Yeah. So, that means that Shango couldn't have seen it himself. That's why he had to wait for the cue. It's like he didn't have visual to make the call and say, screw it, I'm going now. And then since nobody cued him, it's like, all right, or they cued him way too late. Then he didn't have, it ruins part of the story right there. So that sucks.
I know Sid sucks, but like it felt like they really had something here with Sid, and they really just refused to go with it.
He could have. I mean, I am not very high on Sid's actual like ring work. Like I think he as a character is fantastic. I feel
and
like
he's got he has something. I don't know what it is, but he has something.
there are people like Hogan who have just unreal, and Rock, like there are a few people you could name like who just have unreal charisma. But there are also people who just have like some sort of like it factor, and Sid did have that like in spades. I actually feel like Warrior kind of had that too, because
Yeah, I don't think Warrior had it as much as Sid did, though.
no, I agree, but they if they wanted to, like he wasn't a good worker, but they could have actually tried to make Sid into the sort of like main event worker guy that they wanted Warrior to be.
Yeah, and
Like go ahead.
I want to tell you my favorite Sid moment is when he was in ECW, and Bubba Ray's just talking mad shit to him, and he pauses, and Sid's chewing gum the whole time, and he just blows this big bubble of gum and pops it and keeps chewing it right in his face because that's what he thinks of him. And then Devon like pushes him aside because he wants to fight, and he like just pretty much feels his chest up. He's like, "Oh fuck, this guy's huge." And then they just start like fighting, and then Spike like helps him out, and then he just murders Spike because Sid. I have to give it to Heyman. Sid in ECW is insanely entertaining.
It goes back to Heyman's ability, his much ballyhooed ability to play to people's strengths and minimize their weaknesses. Like he did that. Sid in when he showed up at Guilty as Charged and just murdered John Cronus.
He looks like a mad person.
He does. Sid is, I think there's psychology and there's charisma and then there's the physical version of it. So like you see Sid walking down the street and you would immediately keep your eye on him because not only is there the physical charisma, but he looks threatening. You look at him and you're just like, let's cross the street over here. You know, Warrior was, you know, his gimmick was set up that he was so frenetic and fast paced that you got something like that. You know, Sid, you know, not moving fast, but he didn't need to. And like you said in that ECW moment, what's he doing? Is he's so big, he's just playing the I don't care what you think. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your friends. I'm going to kill everybody. And like that works, except when Sid is unmotivated, he just drags ass.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he got unmotivated a lot.
Well, I mean, it depended on if you just had to promise him softball.
Yeah. But that's the unfortunate part is that he just wasn't reliable. Even when he showed up in WCW and was cutting the weird-ass promos about, you know, matching Goldberg's streak and stuff, it's like he still had that, like, he'd show up and you'd be like, oh, hell, what's going to happen?
Oh, that's my other favorite Sid one is when Goldberg had his car crushed and he comes out, he's like, oh, bogus! Like when his car is, like, just there in a cube.
Go ahead.
Sid's just this weird mix of high and low. Like, I don't care for his work, but he's got some moments I really enjoy.
Well, even when he first showed up in the NWA, like when they used to have the skyscrapers, they would boo him if he tagged out to Dan Spivey, and then when Spivey was in there, the crowds would just chant, "We want Sid," the entire time he was on the apron.
Yeah, he had something. I can't quite put my finger on exactly how to define what it was, but he had something. I actually saw Sid probably, at this point, like 3 years ago when it was WrestleMania in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
He, I believe, was at that. I think he was at that at the WrestleCon that they always have, like the wrestling convention where a bunch of older workers will go and, you know, you can get autographs, you can get merch, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure he was there at that one. And he, unfortunately, like, he's older now and he's reached that level where he's kind of just let himself go.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks older in the face, so he doesn't quite have that Sid look. But there was a period, I want to say even probably like 10 years ago, which I mean that's quite some time ago at this point, but he would have been, how old is he now? He would have been at least like
He'd been pushing 50 about then, I think.
He would have been pushing 50, so he would have been long past like his prime. And I mean,
he got a pop when he showed up and beat up Heath Slater on Raw.
Yeah.
He is now. He just turned 60, so 10 years ago he would have been like 50. Maybe it was that period where he in early to the early aughts, not early aughts, like the early teens. So like 20. I'm showing that he was on Raw 1000 in 2012. Maybe that's what you're talking about. Where?
Nah, I think that was before then, because remember, like, he showed up one week and then Vader showed up because he was like, it's Slater time, and then DDP showed up, and then my favorite of those was Lita came out to wrestle him, and Lita's like, I'm not wrestling you, like, I hired some protection, and then like the APA music hit. And Booker T starts laughing because it's Ron Simmons.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, even just as like 10 years ago, which again was quite some time, but when he was like pushing 50, I still feel like he could have actually had like a run in a company, not necessarily as like a.
He did some stuff in like that Corey Macklin like discount basement Memphis in like 2006 or something, I think.
I still feel you could have actually, if you were a promotion, you could have booked him to just be like somebody's like bodyguard or enforcer, and it would have actually gotten over because he still looked really impressive.
Did he ever do anything in TNA? I don't think so. I think his leg was still fucked up.
I feel like he should have, but I don't think he did.
Which I was just thinking about it because I watched that Brawl for All documentary, but I was thinking about, remember that random Mike Barton, aka Bart Gunn, versus like Perry Saturn match that was on one of those pay-per-views that was just like awesome out of like nowhere. But anyway, I put this at 13. I like this slightly. I like this. There's two under this, and I'll explain both. But the other Sid match is under this. I like this a little better than Sid and Taker.
I had. Go
Hogan
ahead,
was
Matt,
a little
I'll
more
do
game
mine.
than Taker was for their match.
I had this as number 16. I just did not like this match at all.
Yeah, that's where I am. Hogan, it just did not work at all for me. And you've got, Taker Sid wasn't great either, but Taker was holding up his end and seemed to be working a bit more than Hogan, but it's still not, it's not great, but it's, I was just like, God, there's so much. The post-match angle does not save it for me because I don't count that as, that's a Band-Aid on a problem.
So,
and the angle's cool, but I'm not.
I'm going to bundle 9 and 10 together since they're essentially the same match. We're not doing Hogan versus Yoko as the main event because that's not a real match.
Hey,
but
before we get to that, can I do one last thing on Hogan Sid?
Yeah.
The best thing actually from that was in the promos before the match, they were doing this whole thing where Hogan wasn't sure if it would be his last match. And he's doing an interview, a sit-down interview with Vince McMahon. And they get real serious. Hogan goes, "Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to be my last match." And Vince utters one of the most ridiculous lines I've ever heard. And they've parodied this on like The Last Fan. Are you ready for it?
I'm listening.
I'd like to say that on behalf of all of us, your Hulkamaniacs, thank you for the memories, thank you for the inspiration, and thank you for Hulkamania.
Jeez.
I laugh about this. This is an inside joke between me and Damian Gonzalez. I'm like, thank you for Hulkamania.
Well, I like how they're like serious and somber, and then it flips over to Sid, and he's like, "I'm Dr. Roxo. I do cocaine."
I do cocaine.
Yeah, that
of the world.
and you're like, Sid, dude, buddy, how's about some allergy meds there, bud? Would that help? But okay, and this is calling back to another running gag that we've had. You say that, man. Thank you for Hulkamania. Patterson, get in here and thank him for Hulkamania.
There's also in the build up to this, they show like Sid murdering jobbers, and one of my favorite is they brought a stretcher out for the guy, and like Sid just like rolls him off of the set afterwards, which is hilarious. And poor Virgil got murdered in that vignette too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, poor Virgil. So I'm gonna bundle the two Hart and Yokozuna matches together just because I feel like they kind of should be talked about together, because I don't like the 9 match very much, but I feel like 10 kind of learned some lessons from the first match.
Okay. I'm gonna get my notes here for the 9 match. Just a few things to throw in there is I like the open. Brett's throwing himself at a brick wall, and it works sometimes. Like, I kind of like that. We're playing into the motif, but we get USA chants in the middle of this, and it's funny because Brett is Canadian and Yoko was born in Sacramento, so the USA chants would really be for Yoko, but that's not what the crowd is intending. But I went back and rewatched all these before we did this, and the thing that jumped out at me is I know Yoko was successful and good in his role, but I don't care for him very much.
He was about 80 pounds too heavy at this point, I think, for his work to not suffer.
Yeah.
It's also funny when they were doing this big build in '93. They did a sumo wrestling match between him and John Tenta that he won, and I'm like, which is hilarious to me, because if it was like a shoot sumo match, Tenta would probably like absolutely just murder him.
Just wipe the floor with him.
Because we talked about John Tenta, like the all-purpose sportsman, like on this, that he was like into sumo, like football and rugby, and like he was an amateur wrestler, and like just this like super understated sportsman. And also one of my favorite like worked matches that turns into shoots is him and Katawe, where Katawe's just being like a little bitch, and Tenta finally just has enough and he wants to get nuts, but like Katawe won't commit, and then leaves and then acts like Tenta couldn't have beaten him, and it's like, yeah, but dude, you wouldn't even.
You're the one that chumped out, dude.
Because like what I love about that is Tenta keeps trying to work with him, and he works with him, and then he finally just hits the point. He's like, fine, like if we're gonna do this, like fine, like let's go, like I'm ready.
Oh yeah, there was no backing down.
We should do that on the show at some point. We should do that one with that guy that wouldn't cooperate with Inoki, so Inoki just starts like kicking him. I think Bill Burr
Antonio?
did. Yeah. Because Bill Burr did a bit on that on his podcast.
Oh, yeah.
He did. Bill Burr just starts cackling from the fact that Inoki is beating the living hell out of him.
I also love the one, because I just watched it and I still laugh, is when they were doing that Tough Enough thing, and Daniel Pooter gets Kurt Angle in the key lock, and Angle is just like fucked until the ref saves him.
Yeah. Yeah, if you knew what you were looking for, everyone, you're like, woo, Kurt, and then they count him even though his shoulders aren't down to get him out of it. It's like, well,
hey, the Al Snow shoot on that's interesting, because he says that's why we don't do stuff like that, but he was like, they wanted Angle to wrestle all of them, and he was like, you can't do that, like these are big, strong, healthy guys, like you don't know what one of them is gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah. So
he got it pretty. Angle really. It shows the difference in training though, because Angle like really was like just like didn't even. I don't even think he knew what was going on until he had that like.
Until it was locked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the ref talked about that. He said he didn't even know what to do, so he just counted.
Yeah. I thought someone was in his ear telling him to. Using one of the earpieces.
Maybe. I just saw some. I just watched it a couple weeks ago, and I laughed just because it's hilarious that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it reminds me of a reference you made earlier, Brad, of being in Ohio Valley with Mark Henry. It's like we got these feats of strength going on, and we get this big old country boy out there to bend this thing that Mark Henry just bent, and the big rog bone son of a bitch did it.
They said they had fun with that, but they said when Andy Kaufman was working Memphis, he wanted to do all the matches with women to be shoots. And they said Jerry Jarrett was like, "Are you sure you want to do that? Have you seen some of the women in this crowd?" Because there was one that gave him a lot of trouble, and they did a rematch. I think her name was Foxy.
Something like that. I know exactly which one you're talking about, but I can't remember her name.
Yeah, she gave him some issues.
And then I kind of suspect that when they did the rematch, they were working it, but they worked it really well because it looked like she just going to town on him.
Yeah, but that's the first thing Jerry Jarrett says. Like, are you sure? Like, have you seen some of the women in the crowd here?
Yeah.
Which we should do. I've always wanted to do that because like some of the like. I think I showed you some of the promos, the one where he like beats that woman up at an estate. He's like, she's poor, no one cares about her. Oh, he's just such a dick. And I love when Lawler just like smacks the shit out of him on Letterman, and Letterman's like ooh, like what the
He's
fuck?
He's poleaxed. Yeah, he doesn't know what to do. But we were on
the story Lawler tells, like he pile drive Coffin. Coffin's like, get an ambulance. So, like, he's like, we're not getting an ambulance. That's expensive. And the ref comes back. He's like, he'll pay for it. And like, well, get the ambulance.
Yeah. I love that. I just love the fact that Andy Kaufman loved doing it so much. And he never cashed a check for it. He loved doing it so much that he did that sort of thing to sell it and get it over. And I just, that there's a certain kind of purity to that I just really enjoy. I mean, hell, look what happened, this current events thing. But if I reach back and go, hey, one of the good things that came out of Mania this year is Bad Bunny worked his ass off and apparently did a pretty good job. So, that's pretty cool. You've got someone who's hyped to be there and works really hard to do a good job. It's like, wow, that's some good stuff. It's good shit.
So anyway, for some reason, Mania 9 feels like they don't mesh. And it feels like when you get around to 10 that they kind of figured some things out and like they kind of worked out together what didn't work in the first match. And it's still not a great match, but it's a better match. And Hart, they work the underdog stuff smarter. The one thing I despise about 10, though, is, and I said it earlier, is the banana peel ending.
Yeah, that finish is just god-awful.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Because Yoko's going up for... He kind of did that butt drop off the middle rope, and he kind of does that exaggerated, like, Three Stooges fall off the middle rope, and then Hart gets him.
Hart didn't beat him.
No,
that match is Yoko was winning and then Yoko lost. There is no Hart didn't win, and that annoys me so much because you are doing nothing to help your champion there. He's champion. He is champion almost by accident.
Well, especially I guess maybe it was to make Yoko look better because. Essentially, Luger had him beat, but Kurt Hennig screwed him over in the first match of the night.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I'm
also
stop for a minute because Matt hasn't gotten to chip in yet.
I was gonna say that's also a massive blunder is when they did the Lex Luger like on when like they did the SummerSlam one with Lex Luger and he won by count out or something and he celebrates like a dunce and they killed his heat.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, I'm not the biggest Luger fan in the world either, but they really, they could have actually made him a big deal. It seemed like they were trying to, but then they just killed him. They killed him dead.
Yeah. That was so dumb. It was so dumb. Now, where do you guys put this on your list?
I actually have.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, I actually have both of these actually pretty high, but then that's that's like personal preference, because I actually felt, and looking at his stuff after the fact, like Yoko was probably a little bit better worker than I thought he was.
He's better as Kakina Maximus, I think.
Well, yeah, before he really started putting on the weight, he was much better. And I thought Brett really pulled the best out of him. So I actually have both of these ranked high. Like, I have the first Brett Yoko is number 8, and I have the second one as number 7. I have them in my top 10.
I have
of 1 through 17.
Oh, I have 9 as 10, and then I have 10 as 8. So the first match is 10, the second match is 8. So I have them fairly high-ish too.
Mine are sitting, the second match is 9, and the first match is 10 on my list.
So we're about in sync with that.
Yeah, we're not far off from each other, but God, I hate that finish. Like,
no, that finish is really stupid, because I think even if like Hart had been able to like kick the rope out from under him, like even if Hart had just got his foot up and like just given it a little kick and he felt like that, I think it would have been totally fine.
Yeah. If Hart had done anything to contribute to it.
Yeah.
But we didn't get that.
Yeah, it's really... Ugh. Okay, so we are going to hit WrestleMania 11. This is Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow, which, a funny little side note of this, and I know you saw it, Shad, but Steve Mongo McMichael is there in Green Bay Packer regalia.
When that happened, I immediately had a Blazing Saddles moment. Forget about that. There's Mongo.
I think he won a Super Bowl this year. He won a Super Bowl this year with the Packers, because he has 2 rings, I believe.
Okay.
I could be wrong though. I'm pretty sure he has 2 rings though.
I'm not sure, but you know, it definitely pulled my attention.
So this isn't as bad as you would think it is. Bam Bam sold really well. LT was pretty game. His stuff looked decent, I thought. And I thought the ending where he wins off a bulldog, right?
I think so.
I thought the ending was plausible, and I thought like his spots looked pretty good throughout, and like they worked a pretty smart match. It's not amazing, but considering like it was Taylor's first match, I thought it was serviceable.
Yeah.
And it was better than like T's contributions.
Yeah, it really was. Taylor looked like he was really working hard and really trying. I don't know why he was so dialed in on all of his clotheslines coming up from like a tackle position. Maybe it's just muscle memory, but he did lay those in. So.
They probably taught him to do that because you're a football player. You're supposed to 3-point stance at all.
But he laid him in. He didn't hold back on those. And then, Bam Bam just worked really hard and bumped really big.
What do you think about this one, Matt?
I remember when I had started watching wrestling at this point. So this I saw like contemporaneously, and I remember my friends and I were like really excited about this match because it was like LT. But in hindsight, looking back at it, like I think I agree with you guys that it's good for the limitations that LT had. And I do think Bam Bam tried his best. Like he was selling his ass off. So it's not a bad match. It's kind of entertaining, but it's also to me kind of like forgettable. It was a big thing at the time, but it's in retrospect. I mean, people will probably remember the Bad Bunny match more than they will remember this. So I don't have it as high. I have it only as number number 11.
Is this the WrestleMania where one of those Home Improvement kids beats Bob Backlund as at chess, and he goes on this like crazy old man promo like about kids not respecting their elders these days?
I don't know. I'm not sure I was ever aware that happened.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yeah, that was the one.
I think this was that one.
Okay, because that's hilarious and it's like stupidity. But so I put this at 12. I think it's not a bad match, and it deserves to sit above what I would consider to be the bad matches. I wouldn't want to watch it again, but I don't consider it to be bad.
It's interesting. I have this one sitting at 8 because I got more of a charge out. I thought it was hard hitting. I thought it was good work. And if you're gonna have a celebrity in a match, I feel like this sets the standard for it. So that's I've got it sitting at 8 because I thought it was a pretty good job.
What do you have this at, Matt?
What, the Taylor Bigelow match?
Yeah.
Oh, I said I had it at number 11.
Oh, sorry, I missed it. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, no
about
problem.
About the same spot. Okay, so what we have next? Okay, so 12. I really hate 12. I hate 12 as an event entirely, but so this is Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in an Iron Man match. So there's a lot to hate about this match. It really set them down that path of always having overtimes because they always end in a draw. And where I think this match really falls apart for me, and I'm going to say all this stuff and I have it kind of high just because I think the work in it's actually decent, but where I think this match really falls apart is their unwillingness to take a fall to each other during the match. It really hurts it.
Matt, go ahead and give your thoughts, and I'll go last.
I remember, again, because at this point I was watching stuff contemporaneously. I remember watching this. This was kind of before my parents wouldn't really like order pay-per-views. It was like rare I would get a pay-per-view. So I would always watch this stuff like whatever, like the 3 or 4 month delay between like the actual show and when it would come out on video at like Blockbuster. I remember being excited for this because I was into both Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at the time. But I remember watching this, and I'm older now, so I can appreciate Iron Man matches. But even then, I just felt this match was like boring. They were trying to go broad. Obviously, the plan was to go Broadway. But I just felt it was just too much like plotting. It just wasn't, to me. It was not an exciting match. I have it ranked very low, well, relatively low. I have it as number 13. To me, it's technically a fine match, but it just does nothing for me.
I have it at 7, and I kind of regret that. I think if I had this to do over again, I might actually bump it down to 9 and push everything up a spot in its place.
For me,
I think Shad's gonna go on a rant here, so I'll get this in real quick before. What I would have done, and I think would have made this match much better, is you should have done something where like Michaels goes for the super kick early and Hart like rolls him up and gets a pin on him in like the first 15 or 20 minutes, and then you have Shawn trying to get that pinfall for the rest of the match and then getting the flash pin in like the last 3 minutes. And then going to overtime, which I think would have made the match much better structurally because it would have given it a narrative of then you could have kind of done like the Rocky 2 thing where Bret Hart just needs to stay away from him and he doesn't and he pays for it.
Yeah, that would have been a better story.
So Shad, I now cede the floor to you and
to hell with this match. It goes number 17 on my list. This match can kiss my pucker. God almighty, you're going to have a 60-minute Iron Man match wherein nothing happens. And then so you go to overtime to get the only pinfall in the whole thing, which means that we had an hour. And I don't care how good the work is. We had an hour that didn't matter. We had an hour that wasted your time to get to the part where it's actually important. When it turns out that the actual match for the heavyweight title was what, 10 minutes? I don't know how. I'm not sure how long it went in the sudden death, but that's all it was. So the actual match is only the overtime. An hour, a godforsaken hour of you two guys just rolling around, not wanting to give an inch to each other, and nothing happens. Screw you. You're going to claim to be great wrestlers, then for God's sakes, put on a good I don't care how much you hate each other, put on some kind of story, have something happen, as opposed to wasting my damn time for an entire hour and just being absolutely worthless. Nothing about this for me is going to be redeeming, because I'm not. God, if I had been there live and it's like, oh, we're going to have to go into sudden death, I would have started throwing trash in the ring. Screw this.
Do you think
kick me out? I don't want to be here for it.
Do you think Brett gets kind of a pass for some issues we've seen of bad behavior on his part, especially like backstage or the mid-90s, just because Sean was so egregious that like people because everyone kind of has to have an us versus them thing. Do you think he gets a pass because people didn't like what Sean was doing, whereas Brett was kind of an issue himself at times?
Yeah, this is okay. So yeah, Sean was being selfish, immature, high, being a raging dickbag in a lot of cases, and he sandbagged Nash at 11. Yeah. So he's got a record of doing that. Here's the thing. If Brett's going to be the consummate professional he claims to be, then don't pitch a fit like this.
Make it work.
For God's sakes, do your damn job. Just say, okay, I can't stand Shawn Michaels, but we're having this match. If we want it to be a good match, then what the hell? I'll take the first fall then. Okay, I'll do that. And yeah, the thing... Sean was such an insufferable prick for so much of the 90s that by comparison, yeah, it's obviously not, you put them next to each other and one seems worse than the other. Sure, I'm with you on that. But on the other hand, shit, dude, come on. Don't claim to be such a professional and behave like you're still doing it. Don't whataboutism me and say, well, he's worse. It's like, no, you're doing it too. I know he's worse. I know he's got a bad pattern of behavior, but that doesn't excuse what you're doing.
Or just do what Diesel did at WrestleMania 11. Like, well, if you're going to sandbag me, I guess I'm just going to have to do this the hard way and then still have a good match with him. Yeah.
And so, yeah, this match sucks. I hate this match. I never want to see it again. And it is insulting in the waste of time that this match is. It is the bottom of my list.
So do you guys think that this match gets overrated over the years because it's a sunk cost fallacy match where people spent an hour on it so they feel like it's...
Yes, it's dramatically overrated.
And I think if you watch and Matt's going to know what I'm talking about, like those All Japan matches that went like 45 or 60 minutes, or even like Flair Steamboat too, like really show like what you can do with an hour.
Well, I mean, we just watched Sting Flair.
Oh yeah,
and that match, that I don't think that was really like an hour, right? It was
like
gimmicked.
42 minutes.
Yeah, like long. Gimmicked. It was an hour, but it was like a good 45 minutes, but it wasn't like an hour. But that match was so fantastic, and at no point was I like, oh, okay, yeah, here's the chin lock that they're gonna put on for like 5 minutes to kill some time. No, but this again, I think it's technically it's a fine match, but this is one of those things. Like for me, this is why I rank like both Brett Yoko matches higher. It's like at a certain point, like some matches may be like technically good, but if they just don't resonate with me, then I'm not going to put him higher. I'm not going to rank him higher. I'm not going to, if we're doing, star ratings, snowflakes, I'm just not going to give him a lot, because I need to actually like feel something about it. And this just felt like I don't have the level of hatred that Chad does for this.
Well, he's fresh off of watching it, and we know he spent an hour on that. So
Yeah.
let's move on to WrestleMania 13, which is a pretty good event. Like
Where did you wait? No, never mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys.
So that has that awesome Brett Austin match, but there's also a really underrated Owen Bulldog versus Mankind and Vader tag title match on that. That's just like a great match with a bad ending, I think. But so this is the Undertaker versus Sid. Is this the infamous match where Sid sharded himself?
Oh God, I don't know this
think
story.
so.
It was
I don't
in this
think
time
that's
frame.
this one. It was in the time frame, but I don't think
Yeah.
it was at Mania.
And the story behind that, Matt, is Sid was sick and was working sick, and stuff happens. My favorite story along those lines, though, is when Vince was going out to do a promo and he tried to fart on like Jerry Briscoe and sharded himself, and he had to like walk out, so he went out there loaded and did his promo.
Oh God.
That's
And then I think they said he came back and started chasing Jerry Briscoe. I think it was one of those things where Briscoe was an easy puker, and being a jock environment. Because they said, was that Bobby Eaton they used to pick on all the time?
I think so. By the way, apparently it was in that match that Sid soiled his stuff, but
Oh, and
I'm looking it up.
Speaking of bodily functions, remember you mentioned on Tim's thing about Raven talking about the wrestling sleazes, and he said he thought the Jimmy Valiant thing was plausible.
Yeah.
His problem with that story was he doesn't think Ricky Morton would have left.
All right.
He was like, that's plausible. Like, I don't think Ricky Morton would have left, though.
I remember there was a video where it was Raven and Honky Tonk, I think. Yeah, discussing it.
I just looked it up because you mentioned that. I wanted to see what he said.
Okay. That's probably worth a watch if you got the stomach for it.
There's audio of it on YouTube.
Okay.
So this is I did not like this as much as Hogan said, but you guys seem to have liked this a little better.
I'm gonna stop you there. I'm gonna say I disliked this a little less than Hogan said.
Okay.
This match still sucks.
I give it a little. I give this a little leeway knowing that Sid was sick for this, though. That explains a couple things.
It
Really?
does.
I'm sorry, I just hated this match.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
it's awful.
It went like 20 minutes. Like how did it go this long?
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
this only went like 8 minutes. It feels like an 8-minute match. It really was 20.
It was 21 minutes.
Oh my God!
Oh, yeah.
Really?
It drug
this-
on.
This is number 17. I hate this match. It's of the first 17, it's at the very bottom.
It's 15 for me.
If I could have put this at number 18 of 17, I would have. I could subtract points somehow.
You were awarded no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. It's like what? We're in the first 5 minutes, and there's a bear hug rest hold. What? It's terrible. And okay, I put this in my notes, and I couldn't remember. But in the whole infamous Sid leg thing, didn't Sid claim he never came off the turnbuckles and he didn't want to do it, and they kept harassing him about it?
Did it maybe? Now I'm gonna ask because this could be technically correct, which, as we all know, is the best kind of correct. But was he saying he never came off of the top rope and he was coming off of the middle rope? Because I'm not a worker, but that seems like there is a difference there.
I never came off the top myself, but frankly, it's because I didn't feel like I needed to. But I thought, like, I only watched the leg break once, so I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought he came off the middle. And if he's saying no, I've never done that before. It's like, hey, Sid, you did it 3 times in this match. Which, wow, that is some. If he soiled his trunks in this match, coming off the second for flying axe handles, that's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it pays off.
I mean, yeah, because you could just see him getting jet propelled off of it at some point, which would have been horrific.
Well, it could have been an awful landing, but you know,
at least he wasn't wearing white. That would have been awkward.
Yeah, pretty much. No, this match sucks. Matt, do you have more you want to add to how much it sucks?
No.
Is this like the famous Beavis line of "this both sucks and blows"?
Yeah, for me, we'd have to look at all the main events for the rest of the Manias, because this might actually be like my lowest. It still might be the lowest.
If I wasn't making a stand on principle, this would be my lowest.
Was Roman and Taker bad?
You know, I would actually have to watch that.
Yeah,
Because
I don't remember.
So this is like a really inside personal story. Like, I was supposed to be at that Mania, and by that I mean I had tickets, but at the time, like, I was working for a boss who was just evil, and literally like 2 days before I was supposed to leave to go down, it was in Florida. Before I was supposed to leave to go down to Florida to do all the Mania shows, like, she canceled my leave and was basically like, you have to work. And like, everything all the work that she alleged I needed to do, like, I was done with it by like midday Friday. So it's like, it was such a joke. She was just evil. But I missed out on this Mania, and that has left such a bitterness that I still have not watched. I still have not watched that. I think it was I think that was Mania 34.
What about Cena and Miz?
That's not good, but I would not rate that lower than Taker Sid.
I had the Roman Taker thing. I had dueling emotions during that, because number one, it felt like I was watching that match while my eyes were continuously rolling, and then number two, I watching Taker have that match made me feel bad, because it did not look like Roman Reigns having a match with The Undertaker. It looked like Roman Reigns beating up an old man. And I don't know. I just had just kind of like a visceral recoil from that. And then at the end of it, Taker does this thing. He takes off his gloves and stuff, and he leaves it in the ring. And I'm just like, that's a bad one to go out on.
I'm looking right now. Was the Edge vs Undertaker match at 24 good?
I don't know.
Triple H vs Randy Orton probably pissed me off, but I don't know if it was bad.
I'm not going to like it regardless, but I don't know.
There's a legitimate chance that is the worst. Well, Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre might have been worse.
Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre was quick, at least. It didn't drag like this did.
It's not a good match, but it's just a quick match. It's just like, it's kind of like a nothing match.
Yeah.
How long was it? It was like 5 minutes, maybe, if that.
Yeah, it was short. Yeah. It was really short.
I would have to see that Triple H Orton one. That one might be in contention, but this is probably down there.
This is like a sidebar before we continue on, because I know we're working our way through. We're almost done, but so this is the second year that they've done 2 nights of Mania. And I'm not trying to I'm not trying to disparage Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, but I just don't know that I consider the night one main events to be like a quote unquote WrestleMania main event. Like I just feel like
have anything that felt Mania-ish. I mean, I like Bianca Belair and I think she has a lot of potential, but I think she needed like. The problem is though with stuff like that is they're trying to build new people and give new people the spotlight, but they're incompetent at building them. So I would say like give her another year, but they just would have screwed it up. So I don't know.
I'm not really into Bianca Belair, but I think in this case it's probably just because I'm very into Sasha Banks. I'm pro Sasha Banks, so I was kind of sad to see her lose. But I do know they look across the board. They desperately need to build new stars, so I get it.
And Bianca's got a good look. I like the stuff she does with her hair. Like I think that's really cool. And like when just watching her deadlift people is fucking awesome.
Yeah, they've made a point to actually incorporate a lot of her like freakish athletic ability, which I think is very smart because beyond like the gimmicky stuff they do with like her hair, like that I think is what is really getting her over. Like people understand that she's just a phenomenal actual pure athlete. So I like that they're doing that.
Like because she's I mean like sometimes like it's like when they do stuff with Sonya Deville, she's strong, but like Bianca just like makes it look like nothing, just like picking people up off the ground.
Yeah. Just as an aside real quick, the post match after Bianca won, someone dug up some footage like I don't know if it was fan footage or what, but found footage of Sasha at ringside, and Sasha is sitting there by the barricade with this huge grin on her face because she's looking up being like, hey, I helped build Bianca into something, something big, something important. So, you know what, even if I'm like, even if I haven't watched enough of the build to tell, but even if I was to sit and pontificate and say, was it too early or something like that? If someone like Sasha, who's been to the top of the mountain, was happy to lose at WrestleMania to Bianca and give her that rub, then who am I to argue? That's good stuff.
I think sometimes people get too worried about that, and sometimes you just got to take your shot. Like sometimes you just got to say like, fuck it, who cares if it's too early? Like let's just do it.
We got to do something. Let's do this.
But my problem with the 2-night manias though is it's happened both years. Is like night one seems to invariably end up being pretty good, and then you come around for night two, and like for some reason that's where like all the dumb shit and like the miscues are. And like I don't know why they did stuff like why Apollo Crews beat Big E, and I also don't know why. I know they did this on purpose because that's the shit they do, but I don't know why you finally had fans in your building after over a year of no fans, and then you had heels go over in like 85% of the matches.
Yeah, that's the thing that bugs me. This is flipping WrestleMania. This is the blow-off show for the year. This is the time when the faces win, and then, going forward, you start building new storylines. Why in the hell are you going to have, the heels go over most of the time? And, the crowd was not happy about that. I'm glad that the crowd is back because now all of a sudden they're going to start keeping them accountable and dumping on things they don't like.
I think they're going to find any reason to go back to the Thunderdome and just get rid of fans altogether.
Probably for a little bit. Let me speak really quickly about the Apollo Crews stuff. I'm a big fan of Big E. I'm hoping that what this means is that they're finally going to move Big E up to the main event. And I think it's a little early, but I do think you can build towards him challenging at SummerSlam and winning the title. Like I would love to see that because I think Big E it's like his time. Like, he has so much charisma. He's a good worker. I think you could actually really do something special with him. I don't mind Apollo Crews winning, because I actually think they have an opportunity to do something with him. I think his new character is interesting, but I don't like the finish they did. Like, they basically had Babatunde, aka Dabakato, come in and run interference and what I think chokeslammed Big E.
I think so.
So that's how like Crews won. I didn't like the finish, and I hate what they're apparently going to be doing with this. I think it seemed, what I've heard, like his name could be Commander Aziz, and they have him dressed in like a little like fucking like military outfit, and it's like, just please don't.
Yeah,
I understand that the real person, Babatunde, is of Nigerian descent, so there is a logical step to actually like having them be paired together, but I just don't like it. Yeah, and I even say that as someone who I'm not opposed to Crews going over and then pushing Crews, because I do think the character is, to me, is interesting, and I think he's a good enough worker that they could actually do something with him. I like that turning heel, he now has like an edge, so I like it. I think they need to build people up, but I don't know. Again, it's like they do stuff that finally I'm interested in kind of, and then they do it in such a like awful way or poorly done way that it like, this is like a turnoff now. Come on.
Yeah, I think my favorite way of expressing what you were saying with like, don't do that gimmick with this person, was I saw someone, they were doing a Captain Planet retrospective, and there's a Captain Planet episode where they're trying to address racism and HIV and all this stuff in like one episode, and the guy is like slamming on this alarm button going, stop, you are not talented enough to do this, abort mission. That's kind of what it sounds like. It's like, you guys are not good enough to pull this off. Don't do it.
We should talk about, when we get back to cartoons, we should talk about that as one of the worst.
Captain Planet or that episode?
Captain Planet in general, just being a terrible show.
Yeah.
So we're in the home run here. This is what I like to call the if Austin's not in your main event, you're in trouble era of WrestleMania. So WrestleMania 14, Austin versus Michaels. Shad, you just watched this recently, but I remember the last time I watched this, I was struck by Shawn really seemed to be struggling with his back in this. He seemed really stiff in the back.
You could tell that he was not moving. Okay, that's not entirely fair. Let me rephrase. You could tell it was bothering him, and yet he still did some stuff that he probably ought not have done. There was a
he almost did like a flare thing in the corner. I remember that.
Well, he did, but there was early in the match, he hits the ropes, and it's not that he's doing a dive, but Austin like backdrops him over the top, and he goes all the way up and over, like flat back to the floor.
Oh.
And it's like, dude, what are you doing? If your back is screwed up, don't be doing that. But he did.
Because I think I'm trying to remember this. I could be wrong, but didn't he get hurt because he and Taker did that casket match, and like they did some move, and he like caught the casket weird like on his tailbone, and it kind of like screwed things up?
The story as I understand it, and I went back and watched the match to see if I could catch it. So as near as I could tell, it was a spot a lot like what I was just like. Michaels liked to do that over the rope onto the apron, tumbled to the floor spot, and he did that tumble to the floor spot and then landed his spine like just below his, like just above his lower back but below his shoulder blades across the edge of the casket. And that's my understanding of what screwed him up.
That's actually, I think I remember I saw that at one point.
So, he's not running at 100%. But some good things from this match, the notes I had is that, first of all, they don't have like a lot of dead space going on. By the way, so refreshing from the previous Mania is there's not a lot of slow moving. Like, they don't have dead space. They do some stuff, and then one sells away from the other, so you have some time to breathe. Like, Austin does some stuff, and then Sean like bumps and rolls away or stumbles out of the corner away from him or something. So the crowd has time to breathe. It's like, I've done some stuff. Now I give the chance of crowd to breathe and catch up to it. And now we go into doing more. And so it's not like, it's not full, boom, 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 one thing after another, but they keep the flow going and it keeps the crowd engaged, because it's not like, hey, you're not moving at such a fast pace that they can't keep up with you, but they're also, they're moving fast enough that it keeps you interested.
Now,
So,
this is one part I don't remember because I didn't watch this. Now, did Tyson figure into the finish, or did he just turn on Michaels after the fact?
okay, that goes to the only other note that I made is there's a really good ref bump in this. Mike Chioda takes a ref bump like a man in this. Like I should have written down what it was, but he takes an actual, like, serious, honest to God ref bump where you look at that and go, God, I'd be down too. So Tyson rolls in and does the 3 count. And so he socks Michaels after the match when Michaels gets in his face, but his thing in screwing Michaels is doing the 3 count at the end.
And it needs to be said too, like, this is pre-Holyfield bite, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is pre-Holyfield bite. So Tyson still had like a lot of pop culture juice at this point.
Yeah.
Was the Holyfield bite in the fall of this year? Because I think he had just lost to Holyfield the first time.
What's the date? What's the date on this Mania?
Like April of 1998.
I am trying to. The Tyson Holyfield match was November 9th, 96.
But what was the second one? Because there were 2.
Oh, there were 2.
That might have been the first match.
I'm trying to look it up too. Tyson 97.
Okay, so the ear bite did happen already. Okay, that makes sense. Because I was gonna say I knew I was in high school for that. So
yeah, but it got that even though Tyson didn't win, that still kind of added to the mystique, I guess, of Mike Tyson, in that even if he wasn't winning, he was going to do something to you.
There's a really funny commercial. I don't remember what it's for. It's like Tyson knocks on his door and he's like, "I'm sorry I bit your ear." Oh, what's that for? Damn it. Yeah, I'll remember it when it's useless. But
after the show's over.
Yeah. So I actually like this match quite a bit. This is 4th on my list.
It is number 5 on mine. Matt, what about you?
This match was actually number 5 on mine too.
Okay.
So we got a top 5er there. I think the Austin matches are going to end up high. So we go to WrestleMania 15, which is just like an absolutely wretched shit show of a show with a good main event. This is Austin versus Rock, coming off of like a hot Rock and Foley program. They did like the whole halftime heat.
Yeah.
This year, Rock was wearing a shirt because was he wearing the shirt here, Shad, or did he?
No, he was wearing the shirt at halftime heat, but by this point he wasn't wearing the shirt anymore.
He had some operation that he was covering up. So I like this one a lot. This is one of Rock's better matches, I'd say, and probably one of Austin's better matches.
This is practically like a one-match show. This was very much in the dead center of the Attitude Era, which people always had like rose-colored glasses for. You're right. Like, this is an absolutely terrible Mania because this
is the height of it, I'd say. Because I'd say the Attitude Era. I would say the jump the shark moment of the Attitude Era, where it starts going, well, I think downhill in interest and everything, is the the Vince McMahon reveal. No, there's a couple things I think that kill the Attitude Era. Owen Hart's death, the Vince McMahon reveal, and then Taker and Austin having health issues. But I think the highest rated Raw segment ever is when Austin beats Taker for the title, I think in like June or July of '99 on Raw.
Did that beat This Is Your Life?
Yes, because I think that's the one time. No, maybe This Is
Your Life got like an 8.4 share or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It got a big number.
That got a big number though, but yes, I would say this is the height of it.
Yeah, this Mania is Vince Russo Crash TV writ large, and it's overall just terrible outside of the main event, which was fantastic. Like I thought, if not, it's a really good match. It's a really, really like impressive main event, especially because The Rock he was there. He had arrived in the main event, but he still was like new, not.
I would never have called The Rock a great worker either. He could do good stuff with the right opponents, but I don't think Rock was ever like an A-list in-ring guy.
That's an argument that we could probably explore and pick apart, because there are times I would agree with you, and there are times I'm like, maybe he's more like a Hogan, where he's actually much better than we like the conventional wisdom says he is. It's just he didn't necessarily have to be busting that at all times. He's not as good as Austin. Like Austin was like, at his height of this, Austin was elite. But I wanted to say one thing in The Rock's positive column is when Rhino would gore him, Rock would take that like he was getting broken in half.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Rock benefits from the fact that his charisma was like so off the charts. It rivals Hogan, and you can even make the argument that in some respects it actually eclipses Hogan. I mean, it's not a surprise that Rock is one of the biggest movie stars out there right now.
I'd say he's the biggest, because if you look at his,
I'm not going to argue.
Well, I mean, if you look at, I would argue he is the biggest, because if you look at his resume of like the last 5 years. If you want an easy way to net $1 billion at the box office, you put The Rock in the leading role, and I would argue that he is the only draw in Hollywood right now. As far as you put him on the marquee, you're going to put some asses in seats and draw a lot of money.
He's absolutely a draw. My wife and I about a week and a half ago, we were actually just doing some stuff like around the house, but we threw on the second Jumanji movie. And like 75% of the movie, it's The Rock doing essentially a Danny DeVito impression.
Oh, that sounds hilarious.
But it actually kind of works, and it's funny, and he's still like charismatic. He's still so much fun. The Rock is a guy who like he seems like a good person. He seems very positive on social media. I have no idea how he is in real life, but he just comes across as a guy like you want to know The Rock.
Yeah,
like he seems like a really fun guy.
We told the story on a dark match, but my uncle was a limo driver for them for Raw, so my cousin got like to wander backstage and said The Rock actually took time and like talked to him and stuff, instead of just like, hey, here, I'll sign your thing. It was more like a, hey, like, how you doing, and blah 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 blah. But my cousin played football, so I think they talked about that a bit.
Yeah.
The other thing, I'm sorry, I'm adding to your point, is
sure.
The thing that kept happening is I've heard the phrase, but The Rock being like franchise Viagra, is that you put him into a franchise that's losing juice, and then all of a sudden it starts coming back.
You mean like
the Fast and Furious movies? Yeah. And then all of a sudden they've got a new lease on life. There's a great case to be made for the fact that the guy he's got the charisma that draws the people in. And
I mean, I think that stupid Rampage movie with him did $1 billion.
Yeah.
That's a fun movie. It's actually a fun movie.
No, it's
an absolutely ridiculous movie. And there are points of the movie, by the end, there are things about the movie that logically I was bothered by, but it's still just The Rock and giant monsters, and that's kind of like enough.
And I think it's done better than any like Godzilla movie's ever done. So that should tell you what a draw he is.
I mean, he put asses in seats. To
Yeah.
Kind of paraphrase JR.
Yeah, who would have thought that
The
who would
Scorpion
have thought
King.
that who would have thought that having a Rampage movie would have benefited from having a human character be such a big part of it, and instead of giant monsters punching each other. But there we go.
You know what we need more of in our life is Goldust and Booker T reviewing movies like they were on Raw for a while.
Oh man, that was amazing.
What were you gonna say, Matt?
The Rock is literally like a generational talent. Like he's you get like one Rock every like 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Sometimes even
Maybe.
40 years.
Yeah, maybe less than that, because the I would say in the last 20 years, the person who's probably closest is Cena. And as the years have gone by, like I actually have an affection for Cena, and I actually feel like I appreciate him more.
I will give him credit. That stupid Suicide movie trailer that looks just absolutely awful, he was the best part of that trailer.
Yes, yeah. Cena I actually think has a good amount of charisma, and he's one of those guys like I feel like I root for him because I think he's probably like a nice guy. He's probably the closest to Rock in the last like 20 years, and I still don't even think he's as close to Rock as you would think. But there was this is like really just an aside, but he was in a movie a few years back called Blockers, which is short for Cock Blockers, where he plays the dad of like a teenage girl.
Okay.
The premise of the film is that it's like a trio of like high school girls who are they plan to lose their virginity on prom night.
Okay.
And it's like the parents of those three girls like are trying to like stop that from happening. It's just like a teenage comedy.
It's like an inverse American Pie.
Yeah, and
that's like the new Hollywood gimmick is they take those like raunchy comedies now and they star them with like they pretty much do like the same archetypes and everything except they have like a female cast instead of like a male cast is kind of what that movie is. It's kind of like American Pie and Road Trip except like they just have a female cast.
Yeah, and it's just like I'm not gonna say it's like a family film, but it's just like it's perfectly fine. It's like
a throwaway comedy.
It is, but it's oddly like kind of endearing. It wasn't bad. It was kind of funny. He did a fantastic job in it. Like he does have like good charisma, and it does come off. So whenever he is on screen, he is either funny or at least like endearing. So the fact that he's kind of doing the old school like the Hogan Rock thing, where he's kind of transitioning to.
I would actually say Okada is the generational talent that's out there right now.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's actually a fair point. I think the problem is just that obviously, like if you're a smart fan, a diehard wrestling fan, like you know who he is, but the larger American public wouldn't know who he is. But he does have a lot of charisma.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
I just think that he doesn't get brought into it just because, like I said, he doesn't speak English. Like if you're not a hardcore that's watched New Japan, you haven't seen much of him. You don't really have the context of, New Japan's done like a huge 8 years on his back is like their main guy. So Austin Rock 1 is my number 2.
It is mine as well.
I have it one step below that. I have it as number
Wait. Austin Rock 1. Yeah, Austin Rock number 1 is your number 2. Okay. Sorry, for a moment I didn't hear that correctly in my head.
Okay.
I have it as number 3, but it's obviously top 5.
So elite level main event here. Now, we're gonna get into a pile of shit. So this is Triple H versus Mick Foley versus Big Show versus The Rock. Now, where I take issue with this is this should have been straight up Triple H versus The Rock. Mick Foley is really bad in this because he has ring rust out the ass because he had been retired for 2 months and I don't think he had a lot of notice to get into shape. Big Show should just not have been in this. Like, I'm sorry, I love Big Show, but you don't think of Big Show when you think of like the main event of WrestleMania. And then this has the mortal sin of Triple H won when no one in the world wanted Triple H to win.
Yeah,
and
that
he won
happens
clean.
a few times.
And then
clean?
Yeah, he won clean, and then The Rock only won the belt by pinning Vince McMahon in a couple months down the road.
Wasn't this match also like insanely long?
Shad?
Let me look that up. I remembered this one, so I actually didn't go back and watch it again.
Oh.
This Mania was not good.
No,
it had a couple really good matches. It had one of the good Edge, Christian, and Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys matches, because there was that period at this point in time. Those 3 teams could have matches with each other, or all together would have matches, and you could count on every match being good or insane.
I think where this one really fell into issue was there was not a straight one-on-one match anywhere on this card. It was all like tag matches, like 3 ways, 4 ways, like weird.
Yeah, the Hardcore Battle Royal was on this one.
I have no recollection of that.
Oh, it just ran up everybody's hardcore title reigns, because anytime you got a pinfall in it, you won the title, but the Hardcore Battle Royal went on for 15 minutes. So whoever had the title at the end walked away with it.
Oh.
The main event that you mentioned, the 4-way main event, went for 36 and a half minutes.
Fucking God, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
36 and a half minutes.
Can I change some things? Because I have it at 14, and that might justify being 17.
There's no reason for it to be that long.
It's because Triple H always has to go fucking long, no matter how much the crowd doesn't want it. He is going to beat them over the head with his 20 to 40 minute match, like jerk off sessions every Mania, and every year his program falls flat. But he's a booking genius if you listen to the internet. Even though NXT fucking lost to an upstart. I don't like him. Like, he is. I hate how everyone like compliments him and stuff because he's not good. He doesn't have that great a mind of wrestling. Like, he just doesn't.
I could probably be arsed into saying that I think he would be better in the future than Vince, because Vince has just seems like been completely bonkers.
I mean, like, if you look at NXT now, like, they just do the same stuff, and Vince doesn't care about that. Like, look what they're doing to Scarlett down there.
Yeah.
Like, she has talent and a personality, and all she is like part of Killer Cross's entrance.
Yeah. The if I was going to say that, okay, and this is like slapdash off the cuff stuff, but if I was going to say, okay, we'll make just try and make a half-hearted defense real quick. And I don't expect this to be good, so, bear with me on it. But if Triple H was originally running that NXT as it was the farm league, and then so people would come up and they'd do stuff, and then they'd rotate on. Okay, cool. Then that quit happening. But Vince is still, quote unquote, going to call people up at who knows when And so there's this specter floating around of, I don't know when I'm going to lose who, because Vince says, he gets a thought he won't let go of.
So my counter argument to you is NXT was at its best when Dusty Rhodes was still alive and Ryan Ward was not working on the main roster. So Triple H had nothing to do with it when it was good. It was two creative guys doing the legwork and him taking the credit.
I told you that this was just slapdash off the cuff. So you bear with me, okay? I know it's not going to be great, but that's all I got. It could probably be better if that Spectre wasn't always hanging around, because then he could kind of solidify his card. But I don't know. There's still decisions that just baffle the hell out of me.
So where do you guys have this crap show ranked?
I have Mania 2000. I have it sitting at 12 by the virtue of, I don't know. I just dislike my 13 through 17 more by a bit. This is a cesspool down here of things I'm not happy with. So I'm up to a point I'm splitting hairs, except for 17 when I'm just losing my mind. But
I'm with you, Shad. I actually have it as number 12.
Number 12. Jeez.
I don't feel... So it's not a good match, but if I had to rank it in terms of like snowflakes, I would have it. It's like 2 stars, maybe 2.5.
I'd say 2.5.
It's just average. But for a Mania main event, like, you don't want average. You want it to be a good, in theory, like theoretically, a good match.
I think the crime it really commits is you do not make people sit through 36 minutes for a kick wham pedigree on the person they wanted to see win.
You don't make them sit through 36 minutes for the heel to win the main event of the biggest show of the year.
Because I think I remember this. Doesn't the crowd just go like dead quiet afterwards, and that's it?
You know what? That's enough of a point that I'm going to try and look it up. I'm going to see if I can find it real quick.
So I think this last one is going to be unanimous. While Shad looks this up, just interrupt when we get there. So our final WrestleMania. And I think still probably the best WrestleMania from top to bottom is WrestleMania X7. We have Austin Rock 2. Now this does have the one, I'm not counting it against it, but this has what I think was the dumbest thing a promotion has ever done, where they tried to turn Austin heel. And it didn't work. He got cheered for beating The Rock up with a chair.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was within the bounds, though, because this is a no DQ match.
Yeah, and Austin, I watched this match back. The way I watched this match back was it was actually Austin doing commentary over top of it. So it was Austin talking me through this match, and I could get used to that. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
So we'll get into this a little more, but so this is my number one, obviously, because I haven't said my number one.
This is also my number one.
Yeah, it's mine too.
Just because this is an impeccably worked match. It gives you what you want, which I think we were all dying for Austin to get the belt back, because I think at this point he hadn't had it for quite a while, I don't think. At least like a year and a half?
I'm fuzzy on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I don't think he had it since who did he lose it to in 99? Since SummerSlam 99. I don't think he'd had it since SummerSlam 99. That would have been That would have been the Foley Triple H Austin one where Foley wins it, and Jesse Ventura was the special guest ref. So he hadn't had it for about a year and a half, if I'm guessing right.
I'm still trying to run that down. I might have found it. Give me just a second.
Okay.
I'm going to mute myself while I check this.
So, and this caps off a really good WrestleMania. It was a really weird ending though, because I remember being really confused by the turn at the time.
Yeah, well, it wasn't well received.
No, and they really, I mean, the product really goes like stone cold after this.
Yeah.
And then I do love that the Iron Sheik won the Battle Royal because he could not actually take a bump to the outside.
Sting is older now than the Iron Sheik was in that event.
Wow. So does the crowd go dead quiet, Shad?
I'm playing that section right now.
Okay.
Vince just clocked The Rock with a chair.
Austin gets like a big pop for just walloping him.
Well, because that's not out of character for Austin to do. That's totally a thing Austin would do.
And then they did like they went into the invasion and they killed Angle because this is where they start like not putting the title on people at the right time, because they did Angle like shortly after they like he won by like DQ, which was like totally the wrong ending at SummerSlam, I think, or the pay-per-view after.
Okay, so quick report. At the end of the WrestleMania 2000 main event, Rock takes, Rock takes 2 chair shots from McMahon. Triple H crawls over and does the pin, and they did 1, 2, 3, and the crowd goes, ah, and it just kind of like trails off over the course of about 5 seconds. It just trails off, and the only thing you hear is Triple H's music. And there's a thing, The Rock's like getting up and leaving, that sort of stuff, and looking around, and the crowd's just this is not the sound you want to hear at the end of WrestleMania. Is the
rappers hitting the ground as people are getting up.
the shoes scuffing as they make their way towards the exits.
The random person in the upper bowl, like with a single cough.
No, that didn't happen, but oh man, that would be yeesh.
So that's our consensus number 1. I'm not really surprised by that. I actually think that's far and away the best.
There were some things that just I wanted to point out, because Austin pointed out a bunch of them. In the course of this match, there was a foreshadow, because it inverted the face heel structure of most matches, where Austin was actually in kind of playing the heel to kind of foreshadow. And then Austin doing stuff like shoving the ref and stuff like that also kind of, he said he was trying to foreshadow some of that stuff. But one thing that they do so well in this match that you don't see outside of Rock Austin and Rock Michaels, or Austin Michaels, is that even in the times of the slow moments, whoever is up will go to do something that will draw the camera's attention while the other guy he's blading, or he's selling, or he's moving position to set up for the next thing. Like, they keep doing things that draw the camera away or draw attention to them instead of the other guy. And so they go and they do something and they come back, and it keeps the pace going. It covers the slow spots. For comparison's sake, just to compare this to Sid Taker, like, Austin knocks Rock down and he goes over and he rolls out of the ring and he's going to get the bell while Rock's getting in position for it to feed up to take the bell shot. Whereas in Sid Taker, if Taker was down, Sid would just stand there and look at him.
Mm-hmm.
And Taker would be coming up, and then Sid would be like, "Oh yeah, I should go do something," and then he'd go and like lean into the ropes to come at him. But Austin and Rock there's constant movement unless it's a double down and they're both selling, and there's they keep attention going and they keep movement, and it keeps the match feeling like it's moving at a brisk pace, and that's just great.
One thing that during the match, so I actually got my parents to order this for me, so I watched this live, and I was like losing my mind during this main event. But one thing that I think I liked that they did that foreshadowed, because no one knew that Austin was turning heel, like watching live, like you just didn't know that. But one thing I liked is that they did have him do like heelish stuff.
Yeah,
and they basically like they sold it just as like, Austin just showing like not desperation, but it's like he wants to win the title, like he's doing everything he can. He's even like breaking the rules to make this happen.
Yeah.
And it made a certain amount of sense. But then there was the double turn at the end, which in retrospect didn't work. I think Austin has talked about this. Like they did it because he thought they had kind of run the course. Yeah. With him as like I don't think that was like an insane line of thinking. Like I understand what he was going, but it turned out like actually no, like you had not run the course. People were still into it. You could have probably got another year out of it, of him being like the face, but
yeah. Well, I think where they missed the mark is Austin had been on top for 4-ish years at that point.
Yeah.
But with his injuries though, that wasn't a 4 straight years. Like he kind of came and went. Like there were a couple of 6 months periods where he really wasn't there, or he was like a background character. Mm-hmm. So I think they were wrong in their thinking, and that I think he probably had another year. I think he would have started running into some resistance and could have turned heel like when Rob Van Dam started getting really over. But that would have been like another 6 months.
Yeah, that'd be a while.
And I think even I think it could have worked too if they had gone straight into like the Canadian Chris's as their first opponents instead of like the Undertaker Kane thing. It might have gone over a little better, because that seems like where they started making some headway with him as a heel.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think kind of making him Triple H's bitch really undercut him too.
Well, Austin's statement about that, because he talked about it in the thing, was he said the problem is if I was going to stay as a heel, I needed to keep people from cheering for me. So he chose to pair himself with Triple H, who is such an established heel that people would be mad at him for it. It was to keep them from starting to cheer him again.
Yeah, but I think that just made people tune out, though.
I don't know.
Him and Angle backstage in cowboy hats still makes me laugh, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
But I think there are things they could have. There are some things they could have done. Like, I think you could have kept him face a little longer. Maybe have him turn heel like when Rob Van Dam starts getting hot. They could have gone right into, especially because of the injuries, like you could have done him and Booker T fairly quick, but they were really against that.
Yeah.
Because they had to prove that like the WCW guys weren't worth anything.
I can't help but wonder if is that Vince's own thinking, or was that someone else getting in his ear?
Or even though you could even have gotten like, I think if they would have done it different, you could have gotten a big deal out of like him and Flair as a pay-per-view main event for the title down the road.
Oh yeah, I think you could have.
but that's not what they seem to want to do. Even though they put Flair back in the ring like a year later.
Yeah.
But whatever. They really made a lot of bad choices at that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
I really think there was some juice because they teased it a little bit and they did do that pay-per-view, but I think it wasn't just straight up him versus Rob Van Dam. It was him and who was the third one in that?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I remember I got that one because I thought like there was a slight chance they might have put it on Rob Van Dam. I think it was No Mercy in 2001.
I don't know. I can't. I'm not sure.
But I mean, like I think there was some juice to that. You could have done him and Booker T. I don't think you could have done him and DDP because I think DDP kind of did fall a little flat. But I think there are some things you could have done that they just didn't seem interested in going with.
Yeah. There were lots of things they could have done. Changing him to be the face of the invasion side just aggravated me so much because it's like, this is Steve Austin. Why in the world would you do this? Why would you have him be the face of the invasion? And it's like, well, because the answer is because we don't trust any of the guys there to be able to carry this. It's like, oh, cool. This is.
You mean when the invasion was just WWF guys fighting with WWF guys?
Basically.
Yeah. If you think about it, like imagine, this is obviously like what could have been, but imagine if they had just shelled out big bucks to get like Goldberg, and you did Austin Goldberg. Back when Austin could have actually still worked.
Yeah.
Like that would have been, if that had actually happened, we would probably be talking about that, 20 years later as one of the biggest WrestleMania main events in terms of actually like drawing money. Because at that time, like at this point in time when WrestleMania like 17 was happening, like that would have been absolutely huge.
Man, it's too bad he couldn't have held on for another couple years. Could you think of like getting like Austin and like Batista? Is like, or like even if they could have wrangled that Austin Lesnar match.
Yeah.
There's just I'm the story about when Austin walked out because they were trying to hotshot the Brock match leads me to believe that there probably would have been something else that wouldn't have done it. Because in Austin's own words, he said, "I wasn't in a good place. That was a bad decision to make. I should not have walked out, but I would not have done the match on just Raw." And it's like, okay, you know what? I get all that, but then we don't know how long he would have been able to hang around after that.
Well, I think he was kind of gone-ish when the domestic violence stuff happened, right?
Well, there were the one that broke public, but there were multiple instances of it.
Well, I was gonna say, I think if he had been an active member of the roster, that big one would have probably done him in for a while.
Yeah.
And I think him being gone let that fly under the radar, and they felt comfortable bringing him back. But I think if he had been like, even if he'd been like the world champion, that would have been like a massive black eye, and they would have, just for pure PR sake, I think they would have suspended him for quite a while.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right.
So I think you're right in that I think when he walked out, he was going to be gone within 6 months due to some reason, because he was pretty much just like an alcoholic at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was pretty bad.
Yeah.
He was self-medicating a lot.
Yeah.
So I think he would have, like I said, I think that was just the inevitable at that point. So Shad, I know you were writing this down on a spreadsheet. So do you see any similarities or large variances in our match selections?
Well, let me see. Top fives. We had both Rock Austin matches were high. Between the three of us, both Rock Austins and Hogan Savage were top three. the order might have changed a little bit. Austin Michaels hit top 5 for all of us. Hogan Warrior hit top 5 for 2 of us.
What's the worst match between the 3 of us, if you can just sparse that out by sight?
What everybody said the worst match is?
Yeah, what we seem to agree on.
Hogan Sid is hang on.
I might have been us on that one because I put that.
Yeah, you put that up to 13. Matt and I had Hogan Sid at 16. You had Taker Sid at 15. Matt had it at 17, and I had it at 15. So if we're going for just the nut low, Taker Sid seems to be.
What about the 4-way? Was that low?
No,
you put it kind of
12, 14, 12. So it bad, but not. It feels like not as offensive as some other stuff.
What about Bundy and Hogan?
Let's see here. 13, 16, 14. So
yeah. And then I think we all had Hart and Yokozuna about in that middle third, like both of them.
Yeah. 2 of us had Hart and Yokozuna. Okay, so there was a 7-8, an 8-10, and a 9-10. So just kind of that's the middle swath.
And then didn't we have kind of Hogan Andre all about in the same range too?
4. Let me look. 4, 11, right. And 6. So that's kind of spread out.
Interesting. They're similar lists, yet very different in certain regards.
Yeah, there's a lot of regular trends that come up, but then there's some pretty good variants. You know, the biggest we have a lot of instances where 2 of us put something real close to the other 2, and then the other one has it varied off by quite a bit.
Wacky land.
Yeah, and then like the biggest spread seems to be the Hart Michaels Iron Man. You got it at 7.
You shit all the way over that.
Well, you've got it at 7. Matt's got it at 13, and I've got it at 17.
I actually think if I redid this list, I might actually pull that down to 9. Because there's a couple things. There's a couple things as I was talking with you guys that I would change. I would actually bump that down to 9 and pull everything above it up, and then I would bump the 4-way down to 17 and put everything above it by 1.
Oh man, yeah, your 17 was the Piper Orton Hogan Mr. T.
Yeah,
and that's.
I'm still comfortable saying though I prefer Hogan Sid to Sid Taker now that I realize Sid Taker was 20 minutes long. Ain't nobody got time for that.
You're just reinforcing my point about the Iron Man match.
No, the Iron Man match is terrible. I really was just giving it credit because like the actual work itself is confident, but you make good points about it being like just pointless and in an insulting waste of your life force.
Yeah. It's like the inverse. I can't remember where I saw it. I saw a clip a while back, but it was a clip from a show where there were these 2 guys in the ring, and they were running full tilt, but they were quote unquote countering everything. And so it's like hit the ropes, and I hit the ropes, and it's like I try to do something, and you backflip out of it, and we come over here, and I reverse you, and it was like 4 minutes of them just going full tilt, but nobody ever actually does a move. It's like all of that right there is, well, it's just jerking off in the ring. It's like, look what I can do, and it's pointless. There's no.
You know why
you're not accomplishing anything on it.
You know why everyone does that is because they saw that Ring of Honor match with Low Ki and Amazing Red where they did like that crazy like sequence at the start of the match.
Well, it's a Low Ki match, so I didn't watch it.
If I could find that sequence, like you still hate Loki, but like they did some like really like cool, like almost cinematic-esque like kung fu movie stuff, like to counter each other and like kind of go around it. But it was like a minute and a half, and I think guys, miss the point and then do 8 minutes of that and wonder why the crowd got bored.
Yeah, it's terrible. Because it's the same thing. You're wasting my time. You are not actually progressing the story any. You're showing off, and I don't care.
It's like they do that, and then instead of clapping, you just hear the simultaneous munching of popcorn because everyone's that bored.
Well, in this case, the clip that I saw, everybody's cheering because they're like, "Oh, it's so great," and I'm just like, "Oh."
I know. It's because
just kill me.
The problem is, and Matt will agree with me on this, I think, or might disagree, but a lot of indie shows, like the crowd is very disingenuous. Like it's kind of like what Matt said before, like you're supposed to clap seals and the crowd is all too willing to oblige with that sometimes for some really like mediocre shit, just because that's what wrestling crowds do, and we have to like show how smart and appreciative we are.
Yeah.
They'll
kind of go into business for themselves.
Oh God, I hate crowds that do that. It's like, oh no, we're gonna do this stuff so everyone knows we were here and doing stuff. It's like I didn't pay admission, or I'm not watching this show to hear you jack-offs, do your chants or whatever it is you're shouting or saying or anything like that. I don't want to hear it. I don't care.
I will say one of my favorite crowd moments was at an ROH show in Dayton. A streamer got stuck in one of the ceiling fans, and it was spinning around, and the crowd noticed, and they started chanting "streamer," and then they were trying to get it out of this fan, and they couldn't. And the more they struggled to like it wouldn't come out of the fan, the harder the crowd cheered for it. And eventually the ring announcer got in the ring and he's like, "Everyone, I give you streamer." And then like the crowd just like went ape shit for it.
And did they leave it alone at that point?
No, I think they finally got it down, and then the crowd booed the shit out of them.
Wow.
I used to love that too at ECW shows because I went once. Those poor bastards, like when New Jack would do his stuff and like break things over people's heads, like, and then they had to sweep up all the debris. The crowd would just chant "sweep it up" at them.
If there was one thing, the one thing in the wrestling business, if I had the power to excise one thing, it would be the what chants. I would kill those with extreme prejudice, and I would sleep well that night because.
What? Problem is, I feel like people still do that, and it's like, dude, it's like 20.
It got old 18 years ago. It is 20 years old now.
Matt, we don't have cameras on right now, but you didn't see me just tense up and grit my teeth when you did that. It's just like
it would be I would keep that and get rid of the "this is awesome" chant.
This is awesome is overused, but it doesn't bother me that much because for the most part, they're at least trying to express some kind of appreciation.
I feel like
even
it's
if they're
crowd
overusing
going into
it.
business for themselves because it's like relax, guys. They just did a body slam.
Or how about this? Like it's like a mediocre match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fight forever.
Oh God!
It's like, okay, stop, please, stop.
Yeah.
It's like if I could pull this chair out of the floor and throw it at you, I would right now.
That is one of those cases where you have they start doing the fight forever chance or something like that. It's like, okay, you guys are just doing it because you heard someone else to do it and you want to be one of the cool kids. Don't do that. Just cheer for stuff you like, boo stuff you cheer the faces, boo the heel. That's great, but for God's sake, I do not want to hear, I can't get too mad at "this is awesome" in general because, all right, I'm gonna fly my mark flag for just a second. Do you remember the Shield Wyatt family match?
That's
and all the
though.
tension.
That's where it's actually warranted.
Right, but all the tension leading up to it, like they hadn't even touched each other, and the "This is awesome" chant breaks out because people are so excited for it. Okay, you know what? Cool. I can't blanket ban "This is awesome" chants because sometimes they're used appropriately, and when they're used appropriately, then it's good, and it's making the point, and it's filling the role it's supposed to. The "what" chant only serves to try and to go in a crowd to go into business for themselves and take attention away from whoever's in the ring.
There's better ways to jeer heels trying to like promo, like just boo really loudly.
Yeah, just drown them out.
Yeah, and they do that at some shows.
Yeah, but don't "what" chant. If you're out there listening, take it from nothing. Nothing is just as I'm just going to leave here and I'm never going to do a show here again because these people, I hope these people never get to watch wrestling again for doing that. That's the kind of feeling you get when that the "what" chants break out.
Now, how do you feel about crowds that aren't doing that to begin with, but someone's cutting a promo and it's really bad, and they finally just had enough, and that's their...
I don't care. They're out there cutting a promo. They're out there doing their job. Do I come where you're working and throw rocks at you while you're mowing? No.
I mean,
it's a stinky promo. It's a stinky promo. It's going to be a stinky promo. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. Just deal with it. Tell the guy he sucks, and then go on with the show. Don't "what" chance.
What if they legitimately can't hear him?
Then you chant "talk louder," or "we can't hear you," or something like that. Do that. Don't "what" chant. Okay? The well is poisoned. It's just you're getting me wound up again. I already had a big outburst on this show. Why are you winding me up again?
Just because it's funny. It's very late and it's funny.
I don't. Oh, okay. Maybe don't do that. I've got one in my back pocket that'll get the show ended right quick.
Well, I think that's it for this week. So
yeah,
I don't know if we're gonna come back with it next week, but because I have to find the footage. But we're going to do a little bit of a lighter touch. We're gonna probably do the Mr. Perfect versus the Doink the Clown series of matches to qualify for the King of the Ring in 1993. There are 3 matches. The final is on Raw, 1 is on Superstars, and 1 might be on Wrestling Challenge. I don't remember where the 3rd one was though. But they're surprisingly excellent little TV matches for the time. Mm-hmm. Because it's Matt Borden, who's awesome.
Who doesn't get the credit he probably should.
No.
And Kurt Hennig, who almost got the credit he should.
I mean, he was getting close in 93.
Yeah. So anyway, we want to say thank you, everybody out there, for joining us for this episode. We're glad you were here with us. Do you think we were off base, or do you agree with our rankings? We would love to hear from you. Hit us up on social media. We do take requests, provided they're not completely, bonkers or something like that.
We have to be able to find the footage. That's the one prerequisite. Don't be afraid to get a little crazy though, because we've tracked down some obscure stuff before.
That's true. That's happened. So, we would love to hear from you guys. Check us out on YouTube and our affiliates. So this is Shad with Matt and Brad. We've been in 3 Corners. You're in the 4th, and we will catch you next time.